He's a dude, she's a dude, we're all today. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all today.
This is officially the first time I've had somebody else on. I did have one other recording that didn't have video with my friends Meredith and Misty. We call that one the Three Cunts Podcast. The problem is getting everybody together, which was what makes it so hard. So doing a mini series, I guess, where I have just a guest on each week, be it you or someone else, it's nice. It's helpful because that's one person. Yeah, a second person, I'm gonna have to get a second camera set up or something because sitting across, it's gonna be hard to just get everybody in the room. But that being said, welcome to Dudecast TV. I, again, am your host, Norman Dexter, and welcome to the first episode of Dude Talk. With me today, I have my friend Erinn. Erinn, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, I am Erinn. I've known Norman for 6 years.
Fuck, has it really been that long?
It's been that long.
Oh my God.
I met you when I got out of college. We were both in college and I met you when we got out of college, and then we both went to grad school at the same time. It was so funny.
That was an endless fucking
That
amount
was
of
a
time.
long time. We suffered together.
Mm-hmm.
And
Your master's was 3 years too, right?
Mine's was 2 years, but you have to do the prereqs. Had some of them waived, and one of them was not.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Did you have to take a GRE or anything? Neither did I. They waived mine for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole story. Like, I feel bad for people who have to take that.
Dude, fuck. When I was with Ashley, she had to take it like 4 or 5 times before she got a score high enough.
And see, okay, let me get a backstory to that. So when I applied to school, they turned me down. And so I was like, why? So I was like, I have a GPA and everything. But apparently, one person said you have to take the GRE. So I was like, that makes no sense if I have a GPA. So long story short, went back to the dean. She was like, no, you just need to take this prerequisite.
There you go. If you pull that mic just a little bit further that way your watch isn't clanking in front
This
of
way?
it. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, and so, you know, we suffered together for quite some time.
Oh, they fucked me. Did I tell you what they did with my credit hours retrospectively? Oh, God. So I had my 30 credits. Ready to graduate back in, I want to say April of 2020. And I got a call after I applied for graduation. Hey, you got your 2 credit hours short. I'm like, no, I'm not. Here. And I showed them I had this same sheet from orientation, okay, that told me all the classes, all the credits, everything. They said, oh, well, that sheet's no longer accurate. It's like, what do you mean? They go, well, these 2 classes that say they're 4 credit hours, those are actually 3 credit hours now.
Oh, no.
I'm like, you motherfuckers.
Oh, my God.
So I told the chairman of the department, Dr. Alessio is her name, and she is a fucking saint. If she ever somehow heard this, I want her to know how amazing she is. She is a fucking rad chick. So she goes, listen, you collected a bunch of data when you were working with the Wellness and Benefits Department. You have all the check-in information with all your clients, and all the people who had checked into the gym on their, lunch break and so on from the fitness room, because there's a faculty and staff fitness room that I worked in with their wellness department. So I worked there for 3 years almost. It's just I took the last 6 months of those 3 years, I took an unpaid internship to give me some more credits, as opposed to doing like an oral exit thesis or something like that. And so I used that internship instead, which was cool because I created that internship. I literally wrote it out, submitted it, and it was accepted. And so that was an easy 4 credit hours that I could have done. But then I had to take care of this retrospective thing. So Dr. Alessio suggested, well, why don't we just take an independent study for 2 credits? I'll sign off on it. You present to me and then 2 other professors, to which I went and chose some to be on the chair. And then I did an oral exit. To which, after I did it, I screamed once they logged off the Zoom call, because, oh my God, was that the hardest grilling of my entire fucking life. And all 3 of them it's not like they were like chewing me out. No. They were asking the questions that they should have been asking. And they were very, very patient with me. There was some it's one of those things where you're under pressure and you forget the most 2 + 2 is 17, right? It's one of those things. Like, because they asked me about this, one of these cardiovascular assessments. And it was like, I think it was a 2-mile walk test or something like that. I can't remember what it's called even now. But basically it was a way to get an idea on somebody's VO2 max and get an idea of what their aerobic capacity is. And I could not for the life of me think of it. And I went there for 5 minutes back and forth until I eventually got it. And they're like, there, you got it, yes. And so it was just one of those things that I had learned years ago in one of the basic classes that I just completely forgot and blanked on in that moment. And they worked with me, went back and forth until I remembered and said it in that oral exit. And I swear to God, when I was done, I just fucking screamed because it's over. I'm done with school forever. Because, and I was just listening earlier today to Joe Rogan and Whitney Cummings. Whitney Cummings is a comedian also. And they were talking about student loans, and I was talking with my roommates earlier about it too, about student loans and how fucking insane it is. I mean, my roommate Holly, not only has she had to deal with brain cancer for the last 4 or 5 years and the medical bills that incurs, but she's had thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in student loans that she's had to pay also, and they just garnish it from her fucking paychecks with like 14% interest on them. They won't let her consolidate them for a better interest rate.
So we're just robbing you.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. And they just take it out of her paycheck. And what they're doing, and I agree with this, I think this is very smart, because living here, they're paying much less.
True.
I said, it makes so much more sense to do exactly what you guys talked to me about, where you just pay that shit off immediately, because they've been saving up for a down payment on a house.
Yeah.
First off, this housing market's fucking stupid. It would be a complete waste of money, not to mention they can come after your house with those student loans if, God forbid, one of you lose your job and you guys getting married, it'll affect both of you if you're married. They can come after both of you. And so if you guys just pay this shit off, which they're very close, pay that shit off, you can save so much easier for a house.
Oh, for sure.
So much easier. And guess what? I'm not going to kick them out.
No.
They're going to stay here, save as much money as they fucking want. And that's what I told them. I said, listen, I would much rather you guys stay here long term than move out and be in a place where you're, at risk.
Yeah.
Because not only that put them in a better position, but I just want, if I don't have this house that I'm living in full, that's fine. So I'm not making a little extra money each month.
Right.
Cool. That's all right with me. As long as it's enough to give me that stability of mind that, if I lose all of my income stream, if I have somebody living with me, at least I'm not going to lose this house.
Right.
Which I wouldn't lose the house anyway because I paid it off.
Yeah, you're good.
But utilities at the very least,
Property
and so on.
taxes,
Plus, property taxes and so on. Plus, it's nice to have somebody to, I'm really not having a good day. I'm going to go upstairs and just talk to someone.
Yeah, good time.
Because this place, and even Holly was saying earlier how she came down here to help me with something, and she goes, oh my God, I love how this feels down here. I'm like, right? Now you know I never leave.
Oh my God.
Unless I have to, I just stay down here in my den. Because every light down here dims. It feels wonderful. When the pandemic hit, I was like, I'm just big chilling. I'm good.
But that's the thing. I think for me, what gets me is, when you get out of school, a lot of people want to rush to move out and all those things. And the thing that really gets me with my friends and just people I know in general is you don't even save money and you live at home.
Yeah.
So how are you going to sustain when you move out? Because it blows my mind when people who make more money than I do and have less bills than I do ask me for money. And I'm just not, you never count anybody's pocket, but I'm just logically trying to break down where is the disconnect between what you make and what's going out. Because there's so many people who say, well, I make this much, I make this much. And it's like, no, you really don't. Because just how the business statements and the income statement says for your job, there's one for you. So what they paid you is a gross, but what you net from that job is different. But then for your household, what you netted is going to be less because you have expenses. It's just like an income statement. So really, what did you make?
Right.
You earned, but what you made is what is left over. Your gross income for your household is very different. And so you have people in student loan debt and all this stuff, and they haven't even paid on the loans, but they have an apartment. So now you basically have another loan because you don't own it. And so I don't get it. It really, I think the financial literacy of a lot of generations is just horrible.
Oh, it's not great. It's really not great. And I think if I really had to guess on which demographic had the best handle on it,
would you say our grandparents' generation probably?
Yeah, and that's purely because
they didn't have a lot.
Well, they went through the Great Depression, right? And so I think there's a very direct lineage from those who survived the Great Depression and then took note of it rather than just rode the wave that came after.
Right.
Because I have a client named Pam who she will be on this podcast at some point. Her and I love talking finances.
Mm-hmm.
Her parents taught her to be frugal as shit. However, her sister basically follows the same as her. Her brother, on the other hand, oof.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll let her tell that story one day. But like, that's a whole other story though. You know, he was pretty frugal, but then he got married, and then she just took over.
Oh God.
Yeah.
But you gotta be on the same page when you get married. You have to.
But sometimes people are lonely and they just compromise.
That's true. Because I think people get into that mindset of, oh, this is ours, this is ours, this is ours. It's not ours because when the IRS breaks it down, and let's just say the divorce rate is so high, eventually it's not going to be ours. What you make is what you make, and what she makes is what she makes, and what he makes is so. It is what it is, and so it's always this we stuff until things hit the fan, and it's no longer we. And
till death do us part ain't so common anymore.
No, it's not. It's really not, and that's sad. But
it is. But that's the reality of the world we currently live in. I see two types of relationships that last, and we'll get back on the subject of student loans in a second. But just a small tangent was, I see two types of relationships that last for decades: the ones that are sex crazed, and the ones that are asexual.
True.
The ones where they never have sex, they might not even sleep in the same room together. They sleep in separate beds, whatever, but they got a partnership.
Yeah.
It works. They're best friends. They just ain't dicking each other down.
True.
And so I see that more often than I see the sex crazed. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just what I see, anecdotally, from my own experiences, from clients, friends, family, and so on.
Yeah. Or you best, there's a trauma bond people. I just learned that one too.
How do you mean?
So pretty much when there has been some type of trauma, there's a lot of people who build their relationship on something that was a trauma. And so,
like a miscarriage, or what do you mean?
Like, as far as, let's just say, okay, you got some mommy daddy issues, or you had, you know, some type of anything that was a trauma in your life where, you know, maybe you were in a domestic violence relationship or some type of grief, something you're going through that has caused a trauma. And so you meet someone and they have something similar and you bond on
I
that.
see what you're saying. I thought you meant something that they went through together that bonded.
No, like something separately.
Gotcha.
But then naturally as human beings, we're eventually going to heal. And so when that trauma is no longer, it will always be there. But if it's something I have, you know, healing or healed from, now it's like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? I don't know you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had, I mean, you know my dating history. I just had to have a string of just dating the most damaged, broken, and fucked up women, which for me, I never had an issue with because I like being empathetic and sympathetic to whatever it is that they've been through. I like being there for them. And, you know, when I was younger, I wanted to fix it by being that person for them. Now it's not about fixing anything. There's not broken in terms of you know, I said broken, damaged, and fucked up because that's honestly the most comically way of saying traumatized. But I don't want to make light of the fact that their life is forever changed. Their literal brain chemistry has changed because of that. And I like creating, to me, I think my superpower in a relationship is providing a space for my partner to be their authentic self, to be vulnerable, and for me to be whatever it is they need in that moment. They need to be touched. They need to be left the fuck alone. They need to vent. They need actual solutions, or they need somebody to listen. Whatever it is, I can provide that for them. And that's what I feel is my superpower in a relationship. But the thing is that sometimes people don't know how to communicate their needs. They don't know how to properly navigate what happened to them and their trauma. And so sometimes it comes out as them projecting their emotions onto those around them and those that they care about. And sometimes they just don't want to deal with it at all. They don't want to address any of their problems. And if you try to help them do that, they're like, no, fuck you. And they sprint in the opposite direction. And there's a lot more that goes into it. But the thing is, what I always liked about finding those air quotes damaged and fucked up people, women in particular in my case, is that they had more substance to them. They were more they could love more deeply. They could care more deeply.
Attached?
Well, so there was a couple of cases where it was clear attachment and codependency. But the thing was, that was few and far between. Thank God, because those are the very few where I did leave.
Okay.
But like 85% of my relationships, I'm the one that's been left. And it's usually because I'm very quick to try and work through things. I'm very quick to try and communicate, figure it out, and work together on it.
Right.
That's the issue. A lot of people don't want that. They want to just, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
And then they leave.
Yeah, and then you just carry that on to the next and the next.
Exactly. And a lot of people in those situations, they like to latch on to one thing, one reason, and then that one reason just grows.
That's
and
true.
then they use that as the excuse to leave. When there was really something else that
but
was
they
going
were
on.
waiting on that excuse.
Exactly. And that's what's happened more often than not in my more recent serious relationships. Which, whatever.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
You learn. Man.
And that's the way I see it, because it's kind of like calluses on your hands. The more you get your heartstrings tug on, they're going to get tougher. They're going to get more coarse, if you will. And
it's just experience, life experience.
yeah, and I can't complain about that.
No.
It's kind of like my view on the idea of cheating is that, well, if somebody's going to do it, you'll find out eventually.
Yeah.
It's just like a liar. You'll find out eventually. Nobody's perfect.
It's going to come out. It always does. So.
Yeah, if somebody as successful as Bernie Madoff could do it, but eventually got caught, I'm pretty sure we all going to get caught too.
That's the part that never really hits me, is the fact that, especially when you are a public figure or some type of person of power or influence and you're doing something, it always comes
They just think it's never going to end. And they think it's never
You're
going to end.
already being investigated. You just don't know. It always comes out.
Yeah, it's like, you watch these, like Pablo Escobar and all these narcos and all these other guys who made billions of dollars. Like, we did it. We're at the top. What do you need more for?
I'm out.
Get the fuck out.
Sorry. You can take it. I don't even want it.
Yeah.
I want peace of mind. I'm done.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, sell it to somebody. Like, hey, man, I just want you to know, here's this whole network.
Yeah.
I don't want you to buy it. It's just yours. Take it.
I don't want you to kill me for it. I want you to have it.
I just want you to have it. I want you to
out.
take this shit. I'm going to go live my life somewhere where no one knows where I am.
Yeah.
Peace. Go get some plastic surgery. Get the fuck out.
Let me give you a prime example. My family is just, the dynamics are.
Oh, yeah.
Messed
Your
up.
dad's side versus your mom's side. Completely different.
But like, even when you think about my siblings, I have there's there's four of us. So 2 out of the 4 of us have, college degrees, post, college degrees. And then on the other hand, we have, 2 siblings that don't. But then one of my siblings has been in and out of prison my whole life for drugs. So it's like, when you look at us, like, one of my siblings is a teacher. But then you have to explain, but I do have another sibling that's a drug dealer. But the thing that goes off in my mind is, you've been doing this since I can remember. And there's a 7-year difference between me and him. And like, he's in prison right now as we speak. And I'm just thinking to myself, when are you going to figure out this is not a career? You cannot keep doing this. First of all, someone in your network is a snitch. Because you keep going to prison.
Well, and here's the other thing too, because he might say, well, I want to lean into the fact that all this shit's getting legalized. Well, listen, dude, you got to get licensed. Otherwise, it's still illegal.
Hard stuff. Hard.
Well, give it 10 years. It'll probably,
probably will.
Portland and Oregon just said, yeah, fucking take crack. We don't care.
But I think for me, the thing is, okay, how I would think about it is, if this really, because a lot of people, it is the only way that they can make money to survive in their environment. But where is the retirement plan? Where is the exit strategy? Because just as you took someone else's corner, someone's going to come and take it from you.
Right. Well, it's the same with what we were talking about earlier with people who basically live in paycheck to paycheck. It's the same short-term thinking.
Like I told you, remember the other week, I said, I paid myself. And I've only spent $50. And it wasn't because I don't need anything. I don't go to the store to, unless it's a need, I'm not going to buy it. So.
Exactly.
I don't know. I don't get it, how it's like there are needs. There are absolute needs. But then if every dollar is accounted for, either it's going to some type of investment. I personally believe that only thing that should be in your checking are expenses, nothing else. A savings, there's no point. That's just a glorified checking. I just don't understand when people tell me how much they make, and then there's nothing to show for it. Even you have student loans. Yeah. Okay, pay the loan. But
well, that's one of the things I was going to say earlier too. One of my friends, he and his wife, they are now expecting their 5th child.
Oof,
She told me a couple of years ago she wanted 5. I was like, why the fuck do you want 5? She goes, because I always wanted 5. I'm like,
Okay.
all right, more power to you. I know he's not going to stop you. Can't break the willing. But you know, here's what she also told me. She told me, she goes, because I asked her, I said, so what are you guys going to do about your student loans? I mean, because she's a teacher, but she's been so busy being a mom that she hasn't been able to work really at all. But here's the thing. She got into one of these companies. It's like Unique, but I can't remember which one it is. It's one of these makeup companies where you get other people to come in to sell it. So it's no, it's not Mary Kay, but it's like that. It's the same kind of business model, right? And she's doing really well. She's fucking killing it. She's making well into the 6 figures. Makes more than him, and he's a police officer at a very high pay scale too. And so, like, they're doing well. Here's the thing. They both went to Notre Dame. That's where they met. Okay, it's out of state. He had full ride scholarship, fullback for Notre Dame. She, out of state, right? Grew up in Ohio. Literally, but she grew up in Cleveland. It was like less than an hour drive. If she had commuted, could save so much money, but didn't. Maybe she did. I don't know. All I know is the number that they told me: $118,000 in student loans for a 4-year teaching degree. For a 4-year teaching degree, and they said that the minimum payment is like $692 a month. And they basically said, yeah, we don't really plan on ever paying it down. We're just going to pay that the rest of our lives. Give you an idea. I am 2 days older than him. So he'll be 30 next year like me. And they're just like, yeah, we're just never going to pay this down. Now, given this was a few years ago that we had this conversation, maybe their thought process has changed. But that's how abysmal it is for some of these people who have these loans. And by people, I mean millennials and younger.
It's almost like they don't care. It's like it is what it is.
Well, even then, I know somebody, a client I used to have, who he had an IT degree in the 90s, and he's in his 40s, late 40s, early 50s now, still paying that student loan. I'm like, in the 90s, that shit wasn't that expensive.
No, it wasn't.
Now, fuck me.
So this is the interest that kills.
Yes.
And you can't just be like, oh, I threw, $100 on it this month.
Like,
no, it doesn't work
you
like
can't.
that.
Like, you can't even rent a car
No.
until, is it 21 or 25?
You can get it at 25, but you have to pay the young driver fee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can't even rent a car until you're 25. But they'll let you take out $100,000 in student loans at 18, no problemo.
No. I mean, when I graduated high school, they were sending me visas, just calling my name. But it's really a shame when you think about that. Even to a certain extent, as long as you're putting something on the student loans, because the student loan debt crisis is so bad, it's almost like the creditors and the people, interpreting this debt is almost like, we expect this. Oh, so go ahead and get more.
One of the, when I mentioned Joe Rogan earlier talking to Whitney Cummings about this, they looked up, he had Jamie, his producer, look up, what the average debt was for a dentist when they got out of school. $292,000 in change.
Oh my God.
And I'll never forget, there was this one outrageous example of this doctor, this surgeon who graduated, and he was working and he had a job and everything. And the minimum payment on his near $500,000 in student loans, the minimum payment, this is not including interest. So sorry, this is not including principal. This is only the interest. Was $1,600 a month.
I figured.
And he said that he paying that, eventually the interest will accumulate.
Oh yeah.
And it will eventually get to where he'll owe $1 million.
Oh, for sure.
It'll just keep building year after year after year. No matter how much he pays, he can't pay it down. No. And here's the problem with student loans. It's the one thing that follows you through bankruptcy and through death.
Yes.
You can fucking die and they'll go after your family.
The fact that people are getting higher life insurance so when they die, they can pay it. So
maybe.
Maybe. So it's like, I almost have to die so my family doesn't have to accumulate this.
Because, the thing you always hear, and it always comes from the Republican side of things, which is fine. I get this. I really do. The whole, well, I paid down my student loans. Yeah, I understand that. I understand that. I understand because I was lucky. Yeah. I was very lucky. My parents offered me a chance to get a degree and not have to pay for it.
Right.
I was not going to go back to school without that offer. It's the only reason I went back. I was ready to, take out a loan and start my own gym at 20 years old. But they sent me back, and I stuck to their conditions. Maintain a 3.5, live at home with them, and don't work for the first year so that I can maintain that 3.5. And once I could prove that, they would let me get a job. And that's when I started my job at LA Fitness.
Yep, I remember you told me that.
And I did that, and I worked all throughout my schooling so I could save every fucking penny and eventually buy this place. And, it took me a while to get to a point where I'm like, okay, I can accept the fact that my parents helped me out.
Right.
Because for the longest time, it was that whole, oh, you a mama's boy, your mommy and daddy gave you everything. But I worked so much during school, maintained a good GPA.
You worked more than anybody I know.
And because of that, I can take pride in it. And I'm like, okay, I'm not just one of these people who just had the silver spoon.
Yeah.
And now I could have. I could have just fucking bullshit everything, played video games, gone out and partied like a lot of other people do. But this is not what I wanted for myself. Now, it kind of fucking traumatized me because anything less than an A, and I was having a mental breakdown.
Me too.
However, I'm thankfully, I mentioned on the podcast I recorded last night that for a year and a half after my last master's course in spring of 2019, it took me a year and a half to be able to come home and feel okay with doing nothing. Because I'm like, I should be studying right now. I should be doing homework right now. I should be just this pit in my stomach.
Idle for
Exactly. I'm finally okay with doing nothing. Hence the formation of a podcast like this. And so it was, I got lucky. I was able to have parents afford that to me. And it's the only reason I went back. And that's why I tell people all the time, unless you can get a merit-based or an athletic-based scholarship, or a diversity-based scholarship, whatever you can. I don't care. If you can pull an Elizabeth Warren and on 0.006% Native American, you can get your scholarship, fucking take that shit. People are like, well, that's wrong. You're taking it. No, fuck you.
You take what you can get.
You take what you can get. If you have any amount of chance to get money from the government or a scholarship or whatever, take that shit. And here's why. Because it is such a fucking racket.
Yep.
Because higher education should not be as expensive as it is. And the reason it is because of all these goddamn administrators that they have. If it wasn't for the administrators and they just had the professors, because I'm pretty sure 50 or 60 years ago, they just had the professors volunteer to do this shit. That's what they do at high schools. They get teachers to, hey, I'm going to volunteer. I train a few of them. They say, yeah, no, I helped out with prom. I helped out with homecoming. I planned all of this. We did student government. We did this assembly or this community fair or whatever. The professors can do that shit.
Yeah.
They don't need all these administrators taking tens of thousands of dollars a year from the college purely just to arrange students when you can have professors arranging their own classes themselves and so on. Now, I'm not going to act like I'm an expert on that, but the thing is that there's a lot of money being wasted on that shit.
Oh, for sure.
Particularly considering some of these programs and all the NCAA money they're bringing in, where none of their athletes get paid ever.
Ridiculous.
And so there's a lot going on, but the idea, again, unless you can get some aid from parents, from scholarships or whatever,
don't go.
Do not go unless you need to be a doctor. Right. You need to be a nurse. You need to be an engineer.
You have a plan.
Yeah, and you have to do that in order to be happy, because that's the only way you can do those jobs. But I would recommend you don't go immediately into college. You get a job as, say, a PCA or an STNA, so you can go work in the hospital and see, okay, do I want to do what this nurse does? Do I want to do what this doctor does? Shadow somebody, but get paid doing it by doing those lower-level jobs.
And save that money.
Exactly. And make sure that's what you want to do, rather than just going straight out of high school. I do not understand why people will do that. It makes no sense to me.
They really are trying to kill time because they don't know what they want to do. It's like, I go to college. And
that's one reason, but the other reason is that it's just assumed that that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
When, a month ago, they had to ask to use the fucking bathroom.
Which is insane. Like, when you really think about it, it's a complete jump from, okay, I went from not being able to eat in class to now they expect you to eat breakfast because you're so tired. Or you
I'll never forget when those fucking teachers wouldn't sign my planner to let me go to the bathroom, and I had to piss like a racehorse. Like, I'm going to make a puddle on your floor.
Oh, yeah. Then you get a conduct point because I have to pee.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously?
Yeah. It's like, all right, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, let's go.
It's just ridiculous. Like, because really, when I think about it, I did go to private school, and my mom did. She paid for that, and I was shocked that we could afford it. But My mom is one of the type of people where she will save, save to the point where my mom is what I call um someone who is the silent money, where I'm good, I don't want you to know what I got, but I can take care of what I need to. And I just remember being at freshman orientation thinking like, how are we affording this? And she pulled out her checkbook and wrote the deposit right then and there. But that moment stuck with me because I was like, okay, whatever she's doing, I gotta learn, because I didn't even know we could afford this. But I just remember when I was in middle school, and there were all types of different levels of income when I was in middle school. It was pretty much public school for the neighborhood.
Right.
But you had kids there who would say stuff like, yeah, when my mom gets her income tax, she's going to give me some money. I didn't even know what income tax was.
Yeah.
My mom was like, we don't live off of income tax. We live off of what we make. And so from there, you know, she would show me how she would budget and things like that. You know, my parents got divorced. My mom fed us on $25 a week. She was like, we just gotta make it work. And so fast forwarding to college, you know, I got a merit scholarship. I got 2 golf scholarships. And then basically what was left over was less than tuition at Catholic school. So my mom paid it. She paid it out of her pocket. So then when I went to grad school, it was on me, but I had been saving.
Yeah.
And I had been practicing those practices, not because we had all this money. We just worked with what we had.
Right.
And so I understand everyone's situation is different. But when you have the resources or the know-how to make a situation work and you choose to be irresponsible, that is what I have the problem with.
Right. And then they complain about it.
You complain about it, and then you say, I got to make more money. No, you just got to learn to work with what you got.
Yeah.
Unless it's a need, work with what you got.
Right. And here's a question, too. So now, did your mom only do that with you, or your other sibling who has the degree also?
She did it with all of us. Now, to that degree, he is a very good saver. I mean, to the point where he is better than I am. He will wear the same shoes, the same clothes. He's like you. Unless somebody buys it for him, I will say in the last
sounds like me.
2 years, he maybe has bought himself a couple new things, but he relies on Christmas gifts, birthday gifts to clothe his lifestyle.
Everything you see in this room,
Oh, yeah.
free. If I had to guess, I'd say the only things that cost me money were these mics. No, not even this mic. That mic, and then the other mic that we're not using right now. This camera, this mic, hand-me-downs from my brother when he upgraded his PC software.
And so people make jokes, like, they used to make jokes about my brother saying, like, oh, he's cheap, and oh, he dresses bad, and okay, but if I needed money out of all my siblings, if I really needed money, I could call him and say, hey, Ryan, I need like $500. Can you help me out? He's like, yeah, you want to cash out? You want to make a... But people looking at him, you wouldn't think that.
Yep.
I mean, shoot, he drove a 98 Camry forever.
Oh, those things don't die.
No.
They don't die.
And I think the only reason, I don't know if it got in a car crash or something happened, then he graduated from a 98 to a 2002 Pontiac.
Yep.
And so he drove that thing to the dirt. And so, you know, but once again, everyone's different. Because, like, we talk about my dad and not putting him out there. Anyone that knows my dad knows he's trash with money. My dad makes way more money than anyone in my family. Well, no, my mom's probably make more, but he makes more money than anyone else.
That's because
and
she's got the fucking alphabet after her name and credentials now.
She really does. But she doesn't care about that kind of stuff. You know, she's like, whatever. It's just something I wanted to learn.
Yeah.
But my dad makes enough money. He makes at least over 100K. On a bad year, he'll make 85. My dad lives in a 1-bedroom apartment.
I can't even imagine making that much money
With no car. And here's the kicker. He works at Ford. How do you work at Ford and you don't even have a car?
Oh, that's just hilarious.
Right.
Ironic.
The irony of things.
Yeah, that is.
Like, what? And so, you know, I'm working on his budget now. Because I told him, I said, if you don't take the tools that I'm giving you while you are actively working, when you retire, don't ask me for help. Because if you can't live off of the more right now, when they cut your income because you're retired, don't come looking for me.
Right. So then your frugal brother you mentioned, is he the teacher?
He is the teacher.
Okay. And this is why I asked, because now you have 3 siblings, I just have 1. And it's amazing how you can have the exact same upbringing,
Man, right?
but be so different. Now it sounds like you and the one brother are pretty similar.
We are pretty similar. Yeah.
But then you have my brother and I, and we're polar opposites. And it sounds like you're polar opposite from at least one of your brothers.
Yeah.
But yeah, at least one.
Yeah.
But like, see, and you know, it's really hard to frame this conversation properly, particularly because, you know, obviously my brother, he can listen to this. And it's hard for me to talk about it without framing it like, well, it can come off really negative and condescending or shitty or insulting, and I never want that to be the case. And, you know, it's the same thing with dating and everything else, and then someone asks me about my brother, and I explain the situation, and I don't want him to ever think that I'm throwing him under the bus, because I'm not. But if I just describe his situation, people may be like, I'm not interested in that, like in the dating realm, right? And there's nothing I can do about that, because he or my parents will ask, you know, hey, do you have any friends that are single? I'm like, listen, I can't facilitate something like that. That's something that he has to find himself. And it's the same thing with him finding a job and so on, because he's going to be 26 this year. So he's going to be off my parents' insurance. He still lives at home.
And that is a shocker when you get off.
Yeah, well, see, and that's why I'm glad that I'm young and healthy, because I thankfully don't need anything. And hell, I just paid out of pocket this past February to go back to the doctor for the first time in 2.5 years.
How much was that?
It wasn't that bad.
Really?
It was like, after everything was said and done, dentist, eye doctor, and everything, it was like $500-600. It really wasn't that bad. That's way less than what I would have been paying in health insurance as an independent. You know?
That's true.
So I was pretty happy with that. I didn't have any issues. I want to check everything out. And the cool thing too is, because of my background in health and wellness, I can get my blood drawn and look at it myself and know. But like, it was interesting in my case because I got my blood work back. I'm 30 pounds heavier than I was 2.5 years ago. But for whatever reason, it's the first time my cholesterol's been in normal levels in my adult life. I've had high LDL my entire adult life from 19 on. And now they're finally in normal levels. Now, I was never concerned because there's two types of LDL. There's type A and type B. Type A is cardioprotective.
Okay.
And type B, cardiovascular risk. Here's the difference. You can get a test to see which one you're high in if you want to, but that costs extra money. So instead, you look for ratios. So for instance, if it's high in type A, your HDL, the good cholesterol, will be high, and then your triglycerides will be low. So that's an indication that your LDL that you're high in is type A, cardioprotective. And then type B, the cardiovascular risk, if that is high and your HDL, the good cholesterol, is low and your triglycerides are high, then it's most likely type B. Okay. And you'll also see your glucose, your fasting blood sugar start to rise, and other issues that can lead towards pre-diabetes and diabetes and so on. And so I saw none of those indications. I just had a high LDL level, which I always thought, because the point of cholesterol is to ferry nutrients to and from the liver in the body. And so you would see that your LDL, if you're eating a lot of food, like I was and am, would be much higher. And so that made sense to me, especially with how much I was working out, with my liver enzymes being a little elevated from the creatinine and the other exercise-oriented levels that I would see from muscle breakdown. Made sense. And here I am, healthier than I've ever been, when I haven't had health insurance for 2.5 years. So again, lucky. But I've been taking care of myself financially, health, everything across the board. And so, that tangent aside, my brother, same upbringing as me. The only difference is my parents beat me a lot. And what's that called? Capital punishment? Is that what that's called? Where they spank you and shit, hit you with the belt. They never hit me in the face. They never left bruises. But like
discipline.
It's discipline, right? Well, my brother, he got grounded. That was the difference. You know, they didn't hit him as much as they hit me because I was the firstborn, right?
The self-control and the self-discipline is different.
Yeah, but I always loved helping my dad with shit. I always loved helping my dad with shit. One of my dad's fondest memories of him and I was helping him over at the Tri-County Jake Sweeney dealers. They were remodeling the Chevy showroom, or the Chevrolet showroom, and he was in there scrapping shit like he normally does because he loves dumpster diving and collecting scrap metal and turning it in for money and so on. And I was helping him solve, and he accidentally smashed my finger with a hammer. And, you know, I was tearing up, I was crying, but, you know, I still wanted to help. And so I just powered through and kept helping. And he's never forgotten that, just because of the fact that I didn't care how bad it hurt. I just wanted to keep helping him. And so that right there is what formed my need and drive and ambition to just do something moving forward. And my brother doesn't have that, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, there are a lot of women, for instance, who like a man who has drive and ambition, but there are some who don't look for that. And it just depends. It just depends. It all depends. Everybody has their thing. And so he and I grew up very different. I loved the math and sciences. He did too, but he struggled with them.
Okay.
And I did too. It took me a good, like, I didn't become good at math until I took physics in college.
Really?
I was like 23, 24 years old before I finally had
like
that
a
light
click.
bulb moment, because I'm like, oh, I can solve this shit with just the letters. And then it gets a lot easier. Oh my God.
Yeah, it does.
And so I figured it out. And once I figured out algebra, everything else, calculus was easy as fuck.
It opens the world.
Yes,
for you.
people don't realize algebra is actually a lot harder than calculus.
Yes, it is.
And I had no idea. I thought calculus was harder, and that's only because I didn't understand algebra.
You got to get the precursor. If you don't,
Exactly.
it's a mess.
So anyway, I became very, very gifted in the maths and sciences, but I didn't give up. My brother, he got turned off to it. And so he went into the English and literacy route. He's a very good poet. Like Edgar Allan Poe, dark shit type of poet. It's really good. He's got journal after journal full of poetry, and it's really good. And you know, he's very good at anything video games. He's very good at anything computers and technology, but he lacks an interest in certain things. So, for instance, I have a cousin who's very, very knowledgeable in coding. Gave my brother a couple books to read. He didn't read the books. And he had a job offer for my brother. Hey, if you learn how to code in this amount of time, I can probably get you an entry-level job at Luxottica. And my brother was like, okay, and then didn't do it. And so he's living at home with my parents, and he plays video games throughout the night. He'll sleep all day. And he's applied to like less than 10 jobs since he's graduated almost 2.5 years ago with an English degree that my parents insisted he finish because they were paying for it. Because they wanted him to have that cushion, that safety net, right? The problem is they've continued to provide this safety net. And again, I'm trying to frame this as positively as possible because I don't want it to come off like I'm insulting him.
No.
It's just he's in this position, and I don't know, as his older brother, who wants what's best for him, I don't know what to do.
Like, where's the
I don't want my parents to kick him out and put him on the street. I don't want them to charge him rent, but I don't know how to light that fire under his ass to get him to move towards something, because there's a complete lack of adversity in his life. And that's why he has feelings of loneliness and sadness. You know, trying different, antidepressants. And so I'm like, listen, there is no drug that is going to help you fix your life at this point. Because I've seen him happy. When he is with people, when he's with family, he's happy when he's doing things. And I wish he would realize that if he started pushing himself towards stuff, he would all of a sudden feel more purpose-driven and fulfilled in his life. And I've tried to talk to him about it, but he just kind of like brushes it off, like, whatever, I'm not you. I'm like, listen, you don't have to be me to enjoy your life like that. You just got to find out what it is you like. And so I don't know what to do with that. And I was talking last night, too, that there's a hefty demographic, just like my brother.
Oh, yeah.
Where, and now mostly white kids, for damn sure.
No, it's not.
It's, well, well, because of generational wealth is why I say that. Okay, because of generational wealth.
Like, I'm good, I don't have to.
Exactly. They feel like I'm taken care of, I'm good. It's a complete lack of adversity.
I got you.
Okay?
I can
It's
see
a complete lack of adversity is what I'm saying. And so there's nothing really to drive them. And I think that's why we see so much anxiety, depression, and all this suicide and everything is going through the roof, because they're like, well, I don't have to do anything. So why should I do anything? And that's what I was talking about on the podcast I recorded last night, because the only adversity in my life is the adversity I place on it. And lately, I've been enjoying not having that much adversity. Like the workout app I'm working on, I mentioned that, how somebody was telling me, I think you're scared of the success. I think you're scared that if you decide on this thing that it's going to be real successful and you won't have time for it. He's trying to give me this pep talk. Listen. I worked my dick into the dirt all of my 20s. I want to relax for a minute. I'm not trying to start this new project that can blow the fuck up and then take all my time. And the guy who's doing the app with me, he just had a second kid. He's not trying to blow his schedule up either. Now, the idea being that we create this thing together that can create an income where we are actually working less. And that's why we're trying to go at our own pace. But again, it's adversity we're choosing.
Yes.
But
it has a purpose. It's not
and
just...
that's why This is why the rags to riches story is so appealing.
Let me give you one. So, generational wealth, all that stuff. But before I get into the story, my family made it very clear. More so, my mother made it very clear.
Yeah.
Y'all ain't got nothing. It's mine.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all broke. Y'all ain't got nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, I come from a family like we didn't have much.
Mm-hmm.
Especially after my parents got divorced. But my mother's father, my grandfather, he's from McCormick, South Carolina. You can't even find it on a map.
Yeah.
Can't find it. I tried.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he was there when he was about 21. He came to Cincinnati from McCormick, met my grandmother. They got married when she was 18, when he was 24.
Mm-hmm.
By the time he was 24, his parents died on the same day. So you have 2 children, you're a newlywed, and you have no parents.
Jesus.
And so basically my grandfather got a job at Keebler.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just a janitor. And so the white co-workers would smear feces on the wall because he was the black janitor. And so my grandfather was working there because he was putting my grandmother through college because she wanted to be a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
He was putting my mother, my aunt, and my uncle. Well, my mother and my aunt were going to Walnut Hills, but my uncle was going to private school. So he was paying 2 tuitions for his wife and for his son. And so on a janitor's salary, nonetheless. Damn. And he was going to night school himself.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother, while she was in college to study to be a nurse, wore the same jeans every day for 4 years because they had to make sure their kids had something.
Mm-hmm.
So when he was taking night school for himself, he was studying to become an engineer for that same company. So what they didn't know is that my grandfather was saving money and buying property all over the city. And so every house that he would have, he would open up a line of credit for, one house, the first house he bought, that line of credit bought all of those properties and he paid it all down. And so when he retired, my grandfather had a car, had a Cadillac. Black people love Cadillacs for some reason of that generation, but he never drove it to work because he didn't want the people at work to be like,
They want to know.
Right, where is it coming from?
Yeah.
But my grandmother became the director of nursing and my grandfather retired as the engineer, and he didn't even need that money. He had property in everywhere.
I wonder what got you into your current line of work.
I know. Oh my God. That's what people like. Sometimes people make, I remember I was at one of my friend's house and they made a comment like, they gave me some Kool-Aid and they're like, oh, I bet you never had this before. Like, kind of trying to say, like, I had so much money that I said no.
You wouldn't have a cheap drink.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, actually growing up, because my mom, she wanted to make it on her own.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't tell her parents that she was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told you we were living off of $25 a week for food. We were. And so we couldn't afford sugar. So we didn't have Kool-Aid because we couldn't keep buying sugar for the Kool-Aid. Mm-hmm. And so when I told the person that, they felt bad, and I'm like, it's cool. Yeah. But, my grandfather, like, even when he was in South Carolina, when his parents died on that farm, he didn't even own the farm. And the person, the white man who owned that land said, oh, we're going to give it to you. Did he, when I die, did he? No. But my grandfather saved so much money that he bought all of that land and that house. So, which brings to me, I didn't want to be in that business. I was going to school to do something completely different. I started out at pre-med. Mm-hmm. And eventually I felt like a little prick to change. And so
I was pre-med too, man. I was pre-med too. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a registered dietitian and a doctor.
I was going to be an OBGYN.
Yep. Yeah. Fuck that.
Yeah. It completely went different. But I succeeded more in that with business and finance. I succeeded. I did so much better, and it became natural to me. And so, but also it was something I had to work on. Just like you, I wasn't always good at math, but my mom made me, like, she got me a private tutor and sent me to summer, like Kumon, all this stuff, because she was like, no, you're going to get math. You're going to need it. And so, I mean, I used to be counting on my fingers, but now I have a degree that is math driven. And so all that to say is you got to work with what you got. There is no excuse. You got to work with what you got. It is what it is. Like, I mean, I remember times I would come home when we were struggling and the lights would be off. And I still had to go to school the next day, like the lights weren't cut off. And so it's just like when people see me now, I think that's the part when people make jokes like, oh, like, you know, you must like to be around, but because you go to all these white schools. I'm like, dude, no, I just went to school where they gave me the money.
Yep.
That's where I went to school. And so it's, you got to be careful what you see or what you think you know, because you really don't.
Yeah, it's this weird thing where I don't know what it is about certain communities, because they seem to be in subsects, because there are certain places like what you just said where they just make assumptions about where you come from, and you're like, well, why does that matter?
Right.
Who cares? We all come from the same place here, right? Why does that matter? So but like, I'll tell you what though, when you were struggling, yeah, you're probably sad about the fact that you were struggling, but you had a focus, right?
I did.
You weren't sitting there, I'm depressed.
Oh my God.
Oh, I have so much anxiety. I can't go to work tomorrow. Oh my, no, you were forced to. You were
creates a
forced
hunger
to.
in you
Yeah,
that
exactly.
you'll never
Because you
go back.
don't want to go back to it. And this is why rich people don't want to be poor again.
Yeah.
You know, people who get rich, this is why LeBron doesn't want to be poor again. This is why he will bend the knee to China every second of every day to make sure that he still has that paycheck coming in, because he doesn't want to be where he was when he was younger. That makes sense. You know, I don't agree with him, you know, just sucking China's dick like that. However, I get it. I understand. I empathize with the man. It's just there's adversity that is thrust upon you, and adversity that is chosen. And here's the thing: you get to a point where you're comfortable, you can very easily lose everything that you have, and that's why I think it's good practice to consistently challenge yourself, to consistently place yourself into systems of adversity. Now, I say systems of adversity. That way, sort of like a lab situation, you're in a more controlled environment. And a good example of this is when I have clients who come in who are older, who, maybe they'd like to lose some weight, but the main thing is they want to remain functional as they continue to age. And so what I do is I take them to the lab. In the gym, I can strengthen their joints. I can put their joints and their bodies into, we'll call them risky positions, but here's the thing. It's in a controlled environment because I'm there. I'm there to supervise. I'm there to make sure that, hey, if something goes wrong, I got you. We're going slow enough that we're going to address this as it happens in real time.
That yesterday, that bench.
Yeah, well, we workshop it, right?
But
so
you were
that
there.
exactly. And the best example is I ever had a 64-year-old man. He's 67, 68 now. 64-year-old man fell down an entire flight of stairs. I've been training for like a year.
I don't know what you're talking about. I think I did.
Yeah. And fell down a whole flight of stairs. Stood back up, was like, oh, wow. That was dangerous. He had a few bumps and bruises. That was it. He went to the doctor to make sure. Nothing broken.
Yeah.
Didn't tear anything. Just a few bumps and bruises. Didn't even hit his head. And he's like, how is that possible? I fell down an entire flight of stairs. I'm almost 65 years old. Doctor says, well, what have you been doing? Because your blood works better than it's ever been. Like, you've lost weight recently. I can see your body has changed since I saw you last. It was, well, I started weight training and working out however many days a week. Doctor goes, that's what saved you.
It really
You
is.
didn't have brittle tendons and ligaments or joints and bones. Everything has been primed. And that's the same conversation. This parallels to a lot of shit. Parallels to your finances. It parallels to your lifestyle. Parallels to your relationships. And this is why, for me personally, this is why when I initially made the switch to polyamory at the end of 2020 and started in December and then going into 2021, it's been very interesting because it adds another level to the dynamic of a relationship, because before it was just me and that one person and that was it. And it just seemed so all or nothing. There was no variability to it. It was just, if something went wrong, if the person wasn't willing to work through it, it was just over and done with. Well, with polyamory, it's a lot different because there's multiple partners involved. And so because of that, there's almost always some challenge to work through. And because of that, you're constantly beating on that adversity in the relationship of not only you, but what's called your metamor, the partner of my partner. And so all of a sudden you're worried about the health of their relationship as well. And so you're always on your toes, always ready to work through something. And so again, I like this because you don't get comfortable. You don't take anything for granted. That's the key, not taking anything for granted. And I've hit on that a lot in my previous podcast episodes, because you start taking shit for granted, you start getting comfortable, it can get taken away from you like that.
Oh, for sure.
Be it your finances, your relationship, your friends, your family, your career, whatever, your health, etc. If you can put yourself in these controlled systems where you can kind of monitor, all right, this is hard, but I kind of chose this difficulty. Like you playing the video game, you chose hard mode rather than easy mode.
Yeah.
You're going to have better rewards and you're going to be better at this. You know, if you're playing, I don't know, fucking Mortal Kombat with your buddies and you've been practicing on your own against the hard mode AI, but your buddies were practicing with the easy mode AI, you're going to kick the shit out of them.
You are.
You know, and that's the real life application to what you've been practicing. And that's why I like coming into adversity, like creating this podcast, doing everything I need to do to resituate this room so that we could record ourselves properly today. Was it kind of a pain in the ass? Yes, but I did it and I got it to work and it actually looks presentable rather than wires hanging out of fucking everywhere. So small things like that really add up, and people don't really. That's why I like one of the things that Jordan Peterson does that I really like, and I like Jordan Peterson. I don't agree with everything he says. He's got a lot of religious talk, which isn't really my thing. But he talks about keeping your house in order. Yeah. And that's a metaphor. I mean, he is talking to actually clean your fucking house. Because if your house is a mess, that's a pretty good indication of the rest of your life too.
It's true. That's really true.
But it's also referring to make sure your life is in order before you start criticizing other people. Facts. Is the idea. So it's kind of like those memes you see of, you know, I'm single and I have a really fucked up relationship history, but I love it when my friends come to me for advice.
Yeah, I mean, honestly though, really, I think to say that, like, okay, I'm gonna give you, because it's always like you can see other people's stuff. Yeah. But you can't always see your own stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. You are so biased and blinded to it.
It's like,
especially when you're in love.
Oh my God. Right?
Dear.
Like one of my siblings, I don't care if he already knows how I feel about it. I only have brothers, so it can be any of you guys. But anyway, I think
I know who you're talking about.
Right. I have a brother, and he has a pattern of picking broken women. And by broken women, I mean women who are coming out of something. So any girlfriend that I have been presented with in the last 10 years has either just got out of a relationship, one girl got jilted at the altar, and the other one was coming out of a divorce. And all three of these women, he entered a relationship with them within a month, 2 weeks, or months of those events happening. So it raises the question, what is it in you that attracts this? What is it in you that feels like I have to be attached to brokenness? And so, I raised that question to him, and he was pissed off, but at least I've raised the question to you. Whatever you do with it is on you. But as your sister, as someone who loves you, or even if it's just a friend, if you care for someone, don't be afraid to raise the question. Whatever they do with it is not your concern. Raise the question, and even if they're pissed off, I guarantee you they're going to think about it more than you think they will. And just be done with it.
Yeah, and there's a big talk about boundaries when it comes to stuff like that. And people just don't know their boundaries. I didn't know mine for the longest time. Now I do. And why? Because, I've been through a relationship recently where I discovered what they were. Yes. And I was forced to set boundaries. And I'll tell you what, it's really hard if you're not assertive, which I wasn't for the longest time. I still have a lot of trouble with it. I am very unassertive in a lot of things, but thankfully I am getting better. And you need to assert your needs into the world, express your needs so that you can properly communicate first and foremost. Secondly, set boundaries so that people don't just walk all over you. And that's for guys and girls or non-binary people, whatever the fuck you identify as, whatever. I'm not trying to leave anybody out. The idea being you have to set boundaries and express your needs, because here's the thing. If your brother, all he wanted was a good fuck, that's all he wanted. Those relationships that you just mentioned, after divorce, after getting left at the altar, fucking perfect. Great. Hump your life away. Wonderful. Enjoy yourself. Just wear protection or make sure you all checked out, pull out, whatever. Make sure your bases are covered. Otherwise, have fun. But if you're looking for love, that is not a good environment.
He
That's like trying to
stays.
grow flowers in
Oh
the
my
desert.
God. He stays for like 2-3 years at a time. I'm like,
And you know what? It's possible. Flowers do grow in the desert, but
They
guess what?
do.
A very particular type of flower.
right.
Meaning, the odds of him being that flower, the odds of him being the flower that she picks and stays with,
No.
very slim. Because, see, the thing is, those relationships fell apart for one reason or another. Now, that's not to say that it fell apart because of the woman.
No.
It's not to say it was their
It's
fault, but
something
I
in
will
him,
say
too.
this. It was, they had a part to play in it. Now, does that mean that they cheated, that they lied, that they did that? No, that doesn't mean that. That means they overlooked
Right.
something that their ex ultimately did
Right.
that would have predicted the outcome.
Because most of the time, from what I've gathered from, and I'm not saying for anyone, but from his situation is, I've met all the girls. I would just say there's 3 women that I can say for sure hit the category. 2 out of 3 when I met them, sweet girls.
And they usually are because they've been hurt.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with them, but they were attached to him, and he attached so quickly. And when the relationship progressed after year 1, it was their expectation was to form some type of marriage or something, and he was like, "I'm not going for that."
Right.
But my thing is,
Well, I'm glad he had a boundary there.
right? That's usually like his no, I'm good.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of his saving grace, or it really gives me peace of mind to know that he's gonna stay longer than I would like him to. But I know he has a boundary because one girl was pushing, like, we're getting married. I want to marry you. And so he was like, no, I'm not doing that. And so the next guy that the girl came out with got married. What happened? 3 months later, annulled. So he has a boundary. But really the biggest thing is with finances, with your life, with your partnership, everything starts with, where did you pick up these traits? Where did this come about? It always traces back to something that you picked up along the way. And it can be altered, but you have to first you have to look at the back parts to figure out how did I get here? If you don't have that how did I get here moment in your life, by the time you're like really 25, and shoot, at least 30, man. Really don't go past 30. It's just, because I think my moment came when I was 24. Like, how did I get here? And so for the last 4 years, I've been undoing things that I should not have done.
Yeah. Well, and that moment could be to varying degrees too. It could be something real small. Like, you could be genuinely happy with where you're at, and you realize, oh, I've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, it's not right.
I need to change that shit. Like, for me, I was just working too goddamn hard for too long.
Same.
So I'm like, I'm gonna let up on this for a minute here. Start to
we talk
enjoy
about
myself.
it all the time. We always say by a certain age we will be passively retired because we have worked so hard.
And to clarify, it's not meaning that we're just gonna retire at 35 and never work again. No, fuck that.
Our
We're
type of
we
personality,
can't stop working. We can't. And that's also too why we didn't go through with the degrees that we initially planned on, because we don't want to work for someone else.
No, oh my God, our personalities.
No.
Even this little story, or not the story, but what happened, when you told me about that person trying to come at you.
Yeah.
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 And so, like, even though you don't work for that person,
he came at me with a tone that said, "Hey, I have a level of authority over you." I'm like, "No, you don't.
No, you don't. Yeah.
No, you don't. Every person on this earth, from the president of the United States to a janitor at a hospital to the homeless man on the streets to that crazy lady living in the alleyway, we are all equal." We are all equal.
I always tell people I'm somebody's
dogs.
child,
Dogs
but
are
I ain't
better.
yours.
Dogs are always better.
It's just, I knew when I was about 20 years old, I said to myself, your personality and your attitude, you were a horrible employee. Not saying I always showed up. I never called off. But
problems with authority.
I really did. Like,
that's why I didn't join the military.
And it wasn't so much the authority, it was the reason behind things. Like,
that is exactly right. You would, if you disagree with somebody's reasoning, you had no opportunity to display, "Hey man, did you think about this?
Right.
What if we tried this way?" There was no place for you to input. There was nowhere for you to say, "Hey, I think this would work better if we tried it." There was no input.
Nothing.
It was only do as I say, or leave, get fired, whatever. And that's what I couldn't understand. And I was the same when I was at UC Blue Ash, University of Cincinnati Blue Ash campus. Wonderful educational experience.
Yeah.
The professors worked with me. It was awesome. They were my peers. Excuse me. Then I went to main campus UC. Sit down, shut up, memorize the slideshow, take the test.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And when I asked, I was like, hey, why is it that this is talking about how egg yolks are going to lead to cardiovascular disease because of their cholesterol and fat content, with a citation that's over 30 years old, when I have right here 5 sources from the last 5 years that completely contradict that statement. They go, well, this is the American Dietetics Association's website that said this, so we're just going to stay with that. I'm like, so we're just going to blindly accept as wannabe registered dietitians this decades-old diagnosis just because it's on this website? We're just going to blindly follow this? How about fuck that, eat shit? And so because I would question all of these things, these professors started to fucking hate me.
Oh my God.
And my GPA, it dropped from a 3.96 to a 3.69 that year and a half I was at main campus. That's right. Oh my God. But anyway, that, and so the thing was, like, I don't remember, I butted head with this one woman because she had just finished her master's and she got her job there. I was older than her. I was older than her doing this degree, right? And she would always say, read the book, read the book, read the book. Ask a question, read the book, read the book. I'm like, listen, I got so fed up. First off, that book cost $500-$600. And we had to read every time before class. And I read every time before class. Every single time I'd read the chapter. I'd do the homework, get an A+ on the homework, all good. And then we'd be in the class and she'd give us another assignment on the chapter. I'm like, all right, I'm doing this, cool. And I asked, I'm like, I can't find this. I asked my classmates, they can't find it. I'm like, okay, I'll go ask the teacher. I asked her, I was like, hey, can you help us out here? She goes, read the book. I'm like, listen, you always tell me to read the book. Obviously, I've read the book because I answered every other damn question on the sheet. I read the book several times through. Right. I can't find this one thing. All right. Now, I paid $500-$600 for this book. I'm paying thousands of dollars to be in this classroom with you. So tell me, am I here to read this book, or am I here for you to do your fucking job? Now, I didn't say that to her, but I raised that point. I'm like, why are you here?
And let's not act like you've been reusing all these slides.
Yeah.
Like,
and I
for years.
Exactly. And I'm like, why are you here if I just got to read this fucking book?
Right.
Why am I paying all this money? And I started saying that in the first week of classes when the semester would start, and you'd be going over the syllabus. And, at the end, they would always ask, does anybody else have any other questions? I say, I just have a comment. We're all paying a lot of fucking money to be here.
Yeah.
If you have a question about something, and I would explicitly say, this is to you, my fellow students here, okay, my classmates. If you have a question, this person teaching this class, we're paying their bills to answer that question.
Absolutely.
It is your right as a student to ask a question if you have it, and to keep asking it until it is answered.
Right.
And I made it a point to start doing that in my class. Some professors did not like that.
But they really should be like, oh my gosh, I have a student who cares.
Yeah.
But they really get pissed off.
Yes, they do.
I've had almost every professor I've ever had. They gave me their cell phone number. They gave me their email. Anything that I needed, except for one. And she was my econ professor in undergrad, and she was getting ready to retire. So she had like this whole big thing of office hours. So I signed up. I came to her. She had no one else signed up. The hours were, at least it was about 5 hours of office hours that were available. So I was like, okay, well, shoot, I'm the only one here. I think I should be able to take as much time as I want. So I'm asking her the questions, and she's like answering them, but you can tell she was like antsy. And so eventually she says, could you wrap up, because I want to go home. But you got off. You want me to leave? Okay. And then you're going to possibly grade me harder because I don't have clarity about what you're talking about. But because you're getting ready to retire and you don't want to do your job because you're not retired yet, I get the short end of the stick. But I'm paying you thousands of dollars. Because per credit hour, it's like, what, $1,200? It's $2,500 for some.
Depends on where you are,
Yeah. It's $1,200 per credit hour. Sometimes it's $800 per credit hour. shoot, you lucky if you get something 500 per credit hour.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, it's insane. But I will say, back to the reasoning and the authority part, when I was in grad school, we had a segment that I really wish they would have made a class. And it was talking about leadership because I was in the finance entrepreneurship.
Right.
They were talking about leadership and your staff and things like that. And they were saying that no one wants to follow someone that they have to.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me probably more than anything in grad school. And on top of that, that is why in my business, I have a utilitarian approach to everything, meaning what is in the best interest of all people, not Erinn, all people. And so if you don't have that approach, that's why a lot of people start businesses and they fail, because no one's going to follow you just because they have to.
Right. Exactly. The people, when they're put up against a wall, they're like, I don't need this fucking money.
No, I don't need it.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, I mean, at this point, I can go get a job and stay at home. I don't have to look at you every day and get pissed off. I can go.
Right.
So you don't want people following you just because the money's good. Eventually, they're going to find somebody or a company that they at least like, and the money's even better.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, too. I mean, it's one thing to make money, but it's another thing to be good at your job.
Right.
And that's what's really going to... And I wish employers would look for that, too, because you find somebody who actually wants the position because they like doing it.
It's just hard.
As opposed to this, like, oh, this person has the perfect credentials. Like, when I applied from August of 2020 to probably March of 2021. I applied to over 300 jobs.
Jesus.
And got so few interviews. I got less than 20 interviews.
Okay.
Here's the thing. Every one, I was offered the job. Here's the problem. They advertised something completely different than what the job was.
Always.
Every time. It was always advertised as this thing where you're basically making your own schedule. You're working on your own. You're setting your own schedule, working from home. Not a big deal. It's a lot of emails, maybe a meeting here or there. You're good. You're on your own. You have autonomy. Go through the interview. Yeah, that was a fucking lie. Yeah, you got to be in the office a certain amount of times a week. You got to move. You got to do this. You got to do that. Oh, it's not that much money. It's this much money, and that's not even including taxes. Oh, yeah, you only get benefits after doing this. I'm like, fuck you. Like, just, if you can't even be upfront on a job posting, what makes you think I want to come and work for you after you just went back on everything you promised in your ad? You know, it's just like, fuck.
That's why I tell people all the time, it's not about, oh, I just want to work for myself so I can do what I want.
Mm-hmm.
I get up earlier because I work for myself. I get up at 5 a.m. every day, period. It doesn't matter if it's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I'm getting up because I am the one I'm the engine. I don't get up, that means not just me, the people who work for me don't eat. Yeah. That doesn't work for me. Yeah. It just doesn't.
And that's that adversity you place on yourself, like we were talking about. And that's like, so in my position, since I work completely for myself and I don't have employees, what gets me up in the morning is my stomach. And now most people are like, okay, fat ass. But for me, it's if I don't start eating at a certain time in the day, I'm going to be staying up till 1 a.m. making sure I get all my meals in. You know, as somebody who's trying to do something with their body and their fitness and their physical appearance and so on, there are certain things I have to do every day. And that's that adversity I place on myself because I want to be successful in this thing that I'm doing. Now, I did mention yesterday in the podcast I just released about the fact that there's a lot of nihilism that can come into that because you're like, well, what's the point? You're just going to grow old and die eventually or whatever, right? But that's why I said to focus on the little things in that episode, because these little things, they really give you a feeling of fulfillment, purpose, and success. Just cleaning this place up and helping my roommates clean upstairs earlier felt good. Gave me a dopamine hit. Felt great.
It does. You can think better.
Exactly. And you know what? That shit kind of builds over time. You start to really feel good about yourself. And then all of a sudden, for me, somebody takes a picture of you and you see the picture like, oh, I didn't know I looked like that. All right. I like that. That feels good. Yeah. And so the shit just builds. You feel nice. And it's the same thing with the finances we were talking about earlier. You build, do the good habits, focus on the routine. And all of a sudden, you look at your account and you haven't looked in 3 months. You're like, damn, that's a lot bigger than I thought it'd be.
Because it's a habit. Like you always tell me, Erinn, you got to focus on the habits. Stop working on the end, just the habits.
Yeah, not the scale, the habits.
And so, I'm your client too. But no, like even that, like, I mean, that's a good, analogy because when we first met, like you told me the other day, like your strength level and your consistency was just all over the place. But because I was all over the place, I had no sense of direction. Like I had finances and things, I understood it logically, but when it came to health, I just couldn't get it. And so when you said that to me and you called me out, I was like, Erinn, you're just inconsistent. I was like, dang, man.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't take it as an offense. I took it as, okay, Erinn, like Norman's not saying this to, just to say it. He's saying it because it's like, it's a fact, something you need to work on when it comes to health. But if you're inconsistent in one area of your life, you don't want it to trickle off into other areas. So I was like, okay, I gotta and so now that I have been consistently like, I don't cancel appointments like I used to. And not just because I was like, oh, I don't want to go, but I make it a priority.
Right.
And so when your mindset shifts and your perspective shifts, then things that are now important to you and you want them to be consistent daily habits. You just have to win the day. That's what I tell myself, Erinn, just win the day.
Just the day.
That's it.
Just the day. Don't look any further than the next 24 hours.
No.
That's all you got to do. And
like, I live for the day, but I know tomorrow.
That's what discipline is, because people always tell me, oh, I'm just not motivated. I'm like, well, motivation's bullshit. You think I want to work out most of the time? Fuck no.
When I get there, it's different.
Yeah, exactly. So like 25-30% of the time, I'd rather fucking cut my dick off and throw it in a lake than do any kind of a workout. But I know that it's something I have to do, and it's something I've done for so long. It's easy now to just pull that trigger and do it. Now, I understand why people who aren't used to that would have trouble pulling that trigger, because they're like, oh, this is going to suck. I don't want to do this. I'm like, yeah, I get it.
Right.
But it's just like being a homeowner, and you're like, well, grass needs to be cut. Guess I got to do this. Again, it's their adversities that you place on yourself. Now, with the homeowner situation and cutting your grass, you don't have to. You can have your outside look like a bag of shit, and your neighbors might complain, but really, what the fuck can they do?
Right.
Until the city comes and tells you to cut it, you ain't got to do shit, right?
Just wait for that.
It can just look like a bag of assholes, and no one's going to care until the city comes a knocking. But with your body, with your body, unless you got a spouse that's real fucking shallow, you ain't going to have anybody telling you what to do. And so it's you got to figure out where your priorities lie. And here's the thing. I was looking into the history of priority, the word. I can't remember what video I was watching about it, but priority, it used to be just priority. And then early on in the Industrial Revolution, these people like Carnegie and Rockefeller and all these guys who had all this money, they started putting out propaganda for priorities. They made it plural. See, priority was originally meant to be, this is the one thing that matters. And come hell or high water, this is the one thing I'm always going to commit to, no matter what. And they started diluting that into priorities, where all of a sudden people could choose other things to focus on, and it was okay, it was acceptable. And then it got worse to the point of dilution where, well, I need some self-love, so I'm going to watch 7 episodes of something on Netflix tonight and go to sleep at 3 a.m. and then get up at 6 a.m. because, well, I got to treat myself. I'll sleep when I'm dead or whatever. I'll take a nap tomorrow, whatever. Like, these priorities that people have are all kinds of jacked up now. The priorities are all kinds of fucked up. And here's the other issue. Sometimes the person just has a priority, just one. And let's say that's making money. Well, now you're coming off as a fucking sociopath because all you're worried about is making money and you don't have any time to build on your relationships. So people go too far to one extreme or the other. There's a poet that I listen to a lot. I have no idea what the fucker's name is, but he, he's always he sounds like he's 87 years old, and he talks real low, real deep voice, real scraggly voice. Be wary of the extreme, be wary of the average. Basically, be wary of everything. There is everything he says, and this is why it's poetry, because there's no rationality to it. Basically, he says, whether it's from one extreme to the other, or right down the middle and average, be wary of it, because that's maybe not worth it, is the idea behind it. And so you want to always question everything, because if you're questioning everything, well, guess what? You're probably going to ask some hard questions. And then mentally and emotionally, you're going to approach it like, it's not just physical adversity now, is it?
Because you have to have a conversation, an honest conversation with yourself. And really, it starts with the people. That's why it's very important to have a community of people, because when your community starts saying, like, that's really how I got checked, is because everyone that I cared about or cared about me would start saying the same thing, like, Erinn this, Erinn that. And it's like, okay, if everybody's saying the same thing, Erinn.
Like what?
So, for instance, one of the things would be, okay, Erinn, you don't communicate. Erinn, you shut down. Or Erinn, You eat your feelings. Or Erinn, we're concerned because of, it's been X amount of days. And at one point, like, I used to just stay in my basement, like, I'm not coming out. I'm cool. And so when everyone starts saying the same thing about you, like, not saying it in a negative way, but saying that this is something we see that you're not following through. Like, even my mom would say at one point, she was like, Erinn, where's your money going? Because when I was in college, I didn't care. You're paying for it.
Yeah.
And so when she closed that bank account, that let me know, like, this is not a joke.
Yeah.
And so, because she was like, oh no, she was like, you're going to figure it out. And so that was probably the best thing my mom could do when I would call her and like, Mom, she would figure it out and hang up. And that would be the end of the conversation. But it started for me to have conversations with myself, like, okay, how do you figure this out? What are you going to do? And I always tell people, like, I know my dad, me and my dad are cool. Like, it took a while for me to get there with him. He's still irritating, but I love my dad. But growing up as a single parent home, it really creates a independence early. And so I would say, because I was the youngest and the only girl, I knew it. Like, I had the independence, but I had that spoiled mentality too. I was living in between both worlds. And so when she cut me off, I had to go to the other world. But I had the skill sets. I just didn't want to use them.
Right. Yeah. We all inherently know what to do. It's just about following through and doing it.
You have to just do it.
Everybody knows what to do. Everyone knows that Big Mac and large Coke is not going to be helpful in losing weight. Everybody knows that Gucci belt's way too fucking overpriced. The Jordans are really overpriced. I know. Those are Yeezys. Those are worse than Jordans. Fuck
I
me.
didn't buy them, though.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you can find a way.
Yeah, you can.
Find a way.
The only thing I have bought that I'm wearing is this jacket and my underwear. That's it.
Hell, I ain't even buy my underwear.
Oh my God. But it's not about, like, you can still have things for you, but, like, if you want something nice for Christmas and you know somebody in your family got it, ask them, like, hey, I want that.
Well, that's the thing I think is really undervalued. It's always about, Mommy and Daddy did everything for you, or, oh, my parents ain't done shit for me. It's always one issue or the other. Why can't y'all fucking work together? You know, one of my favorite things that I do with my parents is I barter. So it makes me look like a crackhead in this case, but I'm constantly posting stuff on Facebook Marketplace. You know, and sometimes it's like a microwave, like I fucking stole that shit and trying to get my crack, right? But no, I post that shit up there because my dad buys it at auction for super cheap, and then I'll sell it from on Facebook Marketplace because he doesn't want to get a Facebook. He sells it on Craigslist, and I sell it on Facebook Marketplace. I sold their car for them last week for $2,100 more than what they bought it for. I'm like, there you go. I don't need any commission for that, and here's why. I don't want to drive to the store and pick up my groceries. I want to use their Kroger Plus discount when we go get gas. So what we'll do is, when my mom goes to the store to get groceries for them, she'll pick up groceries for me. And guess what? Since she gets groceries from me too, it's easy for them to stack up those Kroger Plus points. And then we drive together, taking both our cars, and we fill up both our tanks at that $1.25 discount. Because she always maxes out that discount. Always. She's always couponing. She's always buying in bulk. She's saving all kinds of money. I don't want to take the time to do that shit. She's done that shit for decades. She loves doing it. She loves doing it. I have to learn that skill. Why not focus on her skill mastery and use her skills to my advantage, but also to her advantage by selling that shit for her and my dad? They making money. I'm not asking for any. I just want the easing of my mind, knowing that, I can get groceries much easier, I can get them for free, and I can get my gas for free too, just by taking an hour or two each week to help them sell these things that make them a few $100s or a couple $1,000s here and there. I don't need any of that money. I'm good. I have this luxury of I don't have to go to the store and buy shit. I can just go visit my parents and pick up my groceries. It works really well. But we work together. We found a good balance. Too many people, they don't work with their parents.
No.
They I need my independence, or I need my parents to get me all these things. No. It's give and take. Because there's a point where your parents become your peers.
Yes.
And people don't like to talk about that. I'm like, no. Your parents at some point are no longer your parent. They are your peer. Yeah, they are a consultant, just like any other friend that you have in your toolbox, all right? So you approach them differently, because here's the thing. People go, I'm close to my parents. I'm like, yeah? Do they know about your trauma? Didn't think so. You know, how many parents actually know what happened to their kids psychologically? Not very many. And there's a few parents who have no idea the trauma they put on their kids.
That's the other part that they don't want to talk about.
Yeah, and guess
Not
what?
intentionally sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I had both my parents are happily married. They were not abusive. They raised my brother and I very well, but my brother and I turned out very differently. They were ubiquitously supportive of anything we wanted to do. If we wanted to play a sport, all right, go do that. If we wanted to play music, all right, go do that. If we wanted to play video games, all right, go do that. If we wanted to do anything, they were ubiquitously supportive. And my brother and I went and veered off in completely opposite directions. For what reason, I could not tell
We're
you.
just different people.
Exactly.
Like, just how we are. So, me and my siblings grew up. We're just different. My oldest brother, we all went to private school. And so, even the drug dealer, he's not the oldest, but he had the highest GPA out of all four of us. But with that, my oldest brother, when the boys were at Purcell, he was a freshman, and it was just like no effort. He always went to summer school, even before that. And so, when you go to Catholic school, you have to pay for summer school. And so my parents were like, we're not.
Purcell Marion?
Yeah.
Oh, I know the school.
Yeah. And so my parents
It's expensive fucking school, too.
Yeah. I think when they graduated in 03, so they started in 99? And so, if my math is right, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
I've been having brain farts, so I have to tell myself. But anyway, when he just basically just was like, whatever, I don't care. And they told him, you have to repeat freshman year again, because when you're in Catholic school, sometimes there's not, summer school. It's just, you didn't pass. And so the archdiocese sees him as a freshman. And so they had to send him somewhere else. But he has this grudge towards me and my other brother because we went off to college. We have careers. And so it's really more so he feels less than, but we grew up the same. And so he would always say things like, oh, you guys think you're better than me because, this and that. I'm like, you were the firstborn. You had way more opportunities than we did. I mean, they bought him 2 cars.
Yeah.
So it's like, we had to
Well,
pay
that's the insecurity that stems from.
It's an insecurity.
Right. Well, that's what we were talking about earlier, where people just make assumptions about, your community, whatever your community is, whatever that means. Too often people are like, well, your community, like, what do you mean by that? Well, it means whatever it means for you, because, the Black community, the Asian community, no, fuck that shit.
Yeah.
There are microcosms of demographics in your life that matter. And the thing is, some people completely supportive. In my case, everyone in my life that I maintain in my life, completely supportive. But I know a lot of people, who they are not surrounded by supportive people. I know wonderful fucking people that are surrounded by parasites. And I tell them all the time, I listen, until you move away from these people physically, geographically, leave to a whole fucking other state. Leave these people behind. Leave your family behind. Because they are blood-sucking assholes that refuse to let you succeed. You are not going to find happiness.
They're sweet people.
Exactly. One of my clients was telling me the other day. He's made tremendous progress with me in the last few months. He's lost like 30 pounds. He tripled his strength.
Oh, gosh.
He has gotten fucking strong. He started doing shit he never thought he was ever going to be able to do. And he tells me how he tells his friends about this. Like, oh yeah, I can do that. The fuck kind of an answer is that? No, you say, oh hey man, good job, proud of you. Like,
support, cheer
what the
on.
fuck? Why would you diminish this guy's wonderful quality? And he got really drunk one night, or really high, or both, I don't remember. And he texts me, he goes, I just realized you're the only person who's actually fucking proud of what I did, so thank you. I'm like, hey man, thank you for saying that, but like, you need new fucking friends. Like what your brother is doing.
Yeah.
It would be nice if he could just swallow his pride and just talk to you.
Just say,
because then he may have this opportunity to start changing his life for the better.
And so he makes, okay, people always say, Erinn, how much money do you make? And I say, okay, well, are you asking me how much my business made or how much did I make? Because there's a difference. Now, I can control my salary. I can make it go up. I can make it go down. But I just pay myself off of what I need.
Right.
My brother makes more money than I do. Way more money. And he doesn't have a degree. And he is always broke. I mean, when I say he makes $900 a week and he's always broke, doesn't make sense to me. So it's just like, when does this, you did this, and it's about, look, I'm here for you. If you want me to help you, I will support. But you're not going to basically like how that guy
Not gonna leech.
yeah.
Not gonna leech off
You're
you.
not gonna leech off me, and you're not going to point the finger at me because, like I said, I'm working what I got. This is what I created for myself. This is what you created for you. I celebrate you. I support you.
Yep.
But it's just like, come on, man, grow up. Like, some people just gotta grow up.
Well, even, you know what, growing up, that's a really weird thing to say, too, because honestly, the people that I find who do the best with this are the people inherently childlike. Because they're going after what they want to do.
Yeah.
You know? Grow up, grow up. Well, my dad always told me, he goes, you know, son, you have no choice in this world, in this life, but to grow old. But you absolutely have a choice whether to grow up. Now pull my finger. You know, and I always, that's how I've decided to live, because and that's what I've done this last year and a half. I've tried to re-emerge my inner child, and that's why I started this podcast, because it was a creative outlet. Yeah, I use it as a like a kind of a diary and a way for me to journal my thoughts and put those out into the world sometimes. But it's something that's creative and fun for me to do. Like, I enjoy sitting and talking. It's one of the reasons why I love my job and why I always want to train with people, because I like that one-on-one, just talking with people.
You can sense when people are down and stuff like that.
Exactly, and it's nice. And that's why I give pushback when you said grow up, because it's like...
Yeah, not grow up in the sense of... But
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
it's just, you know, I know people in their 50s and 60s and 70s who... They got their finances in check. Good. They got their marriage in check. Good. Kids are in check. Good. You know, all the big stuff in check. But the shit they say about their friends, like they never fucking left high school. And that's where I'm like, yo, grow up. But at the same time, like, you 70. How am I going to tell you to grow up?
Right.
You know, it's like, it's astonishing to me how people get so stuck in their ways. I'm like, yo, don't you know how to introspect just a little bit?
Just a little bit.
Damn, Regina George, relax.
Yeah, I mean...
Get hit by a bus if you ain't careful.
But that's really what I always tell people, I can gauge my success not financially, more so emotionally, internally, based off of my relationships. And a lot of my personal relationships are suffering, but as far as the ones I've had for a long time. But the reason why they're suffering is because for the first time, I'm speaking up for myself. And anybody knows me, I always speak up for myself. But for the people I care about and the people I love, I would just bite my tongue. Now to the world, I'm just going to...
And that presents an interesting situation, because two things happen when you have that. If you finally start asserting your needs into the world, all of a sudden you start to see, all right, just because you're my longest friend doesn't mean you're actually my best friend.
Man.
As you're finding out. That's one. And then another one, I ask people all the time, if it's 3 a.m. and you're having a mental breakdown, you're in a panic attack, you're something really horrible just happened to you, you're drunk and you don't have your money because you lost your wallet, you can't get an Uber, you lost your phone, you go to a stranger, ask them for a cell phone so you can call somebody that you know, who can you call? And the amount of people who say, oh, I don't know anybody. It's depressing. I could list 7 or 8 people like that would immediately be there for me. Either physically drive to me or they would talk to me at the very least. I can immediately come up with a support system. Now, let's see, 3.5 years ago, I could not say that. I could not say that because the only person I could have called, he lived across the country. You know, and now if I called him, he would have been on the phone. But the thing is, I know him and I know our dynamic, and he has called me before. Hey, I saw on Facebook something. Are you okay? He doesn't really have the tools to kind of make me feel better.
Right. But
other than the fact that he knew to call to make sure I was
okay. So at least he's connected.
Exactly. So that's good. But again, you have relationships in your life that have utility. And you know who you can call when certain things arise. Like, I know I have people I can call. But these 3 people... Oh, yeah, they got some good, relatable life experience that can absolutely help me work through and process this right now. Like, when I had my panic attack last year, the first one I ever had in my whole fucking life, after I got gaslit for the first time in my life by this girl I was dating, dude, I immediately called 3 different people, talked to them each for an hour a person. Each one, I knew they had been in a relationship where they were manipulated, they were gaslit, and they were completely fucked over. And I knew for a fact that their lived experience would be extraordinarily useful to offer me perspective in that moment. And that's exactly what it did. It was very hard. However, it was ultimately a wonderful experience for me because of how I approached it due to the people and the support system I had in place. And it worked out really nicely.
Use your support, use your resource.
Exactly. Just like they will use you if they need it. And guess what? A few months later, one of those people actually did call me because one of those people that did gaslight and manipulate them earlier on in their life randomly found them on LinkedIn. And it thrust her into a panic, and she called me. First person she called. And I'm like, it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
You know he's a psychopath. You know he's going to try and find a way to do this or the other. You know it's all right. Just block him here like you have on everything else. He doesn't know where you live. He doesn't know where you are. He has no way of finding you. You're okay. Yeah. And that's sometimes all they need.
That's sometimes all. But into the other part of it, like I have a friend that, will date, and when they are dating and other people and stuff like that, they will go back to that other person. It's like they revert. But your support system will tell you, like, hey, this is not healthy for you.
And that's why I start bringing my partners around my friends.
Your friends and your family will tell you the truth. And you might not like it, but they will be brutally honest. I always tell people, if my family doesn't like you, my friends don't like you, you gotta go.
Within reason. There are some exceptions, and here's the exceptions I mean. Your friends and family, they have to be open to meeting the person first. And the reason I say that is because, let's say somebody comes out as gay or lesbian. Let's say somebody comes out as polyamorous. Let's say somebody comes out as something that goes against the values of your family and your friends. And they just don't want anything to do with that person, which is their right. And you have a choice on whether or not you respect that, which I would say respect it. But that person, whoever that is, or people, that group of people who are saying, hey, I'm not for that, they are now biased. And you cannot seriously account for what they're saying in reference to that. So you can't go to that person, and that's okay. And that's why we have different people in our lives in the support system.
But at the same time, though, there are people, it's a fine line. But there are people who will say, oh, you're judging me. It's like, am I judging you or am I keeping you accountable? Now, you have to know the difference. Am I judging you or am I keeping you accountable?
Exactly.
Or am I holding you on to your own word that you said? Because a lot of times people don't like when you say, no, you said da-da-da-da-da.
Well, it's different now.
Right. And I'm like, no, man. Because I've even had people, like, I will ask them multiple times to make sure the answer's still the same. And they're like, why did you keep asking me? Why did you? And then months later, they're like, no, I feel differently now. I'm like, yeah, I figured you would. That's why I kept asking you. And so, but then
repetition.
And be careful of the person who says, oh, your family just doesn't want us to be together. They don't like me. But you also have to see, is this a pattern in my family? Because if it's not a pattern in my family, then it's really just that person. And so...
But you gotta be careful with somebody who's wanting to play the victim so easily with that.
Oh my God, right? Like... For me,
that's manipulative. The victims, air quotes, can be manipulating too.
Because like I've had situations with that, and being the only girl in a family is tough. Because my brother.
I think it works in your favor pretty often.
It works in my favor, but then it really doesn't because I usually am not heard. But I've made myself be. You're gonna hear me, whether you like it or not. You're gonna hear me. But because I was the youngest and I was the girl, I got. Like, oh, you're the baby, don't worry about it. But it was almost like, oh, we need to protect her. She's the girl, she's the baby. I'm like, can I say baby?
Yes.
Okay, I'm like, y'all niggas don't really even know. Like, I got more things than y'all do.
Side note, you can say whatever the fuck you want.
I'm gonna
shit, piss, cum, the N-word. I can't say the N-word, obviously, but you can say whatever the fuck you want.
Like, y'all niggas don't even, like, y'all are so, like, my brothers are 9, 8, and 7 years older than me. I'm like, the girls that y'all have brought in here, except for the ones that, like, my oldest brother had a couple girls that were, like, really sweet. But he just messed it up. Actually, all my brothers have had it. They just messed it up. But it's honestly, like, when I would say things like, hey, like, I'm not, it's for me, I'm not the type of person that'll just, like, but I have, like, a spirit of discernment, meaning you can feel someone's vibe, someone's energy. And especially when you're a woman, you know, we can read other women very well. Just like as men, you can read other men very well. And
well, there's a reason they call it woman's intuition, and there is no such thing as men's intuition.
Right.
That is not a fucking thing. That's why y'all live longer than us.
But we know, like, I know why a girl is interested in I know why a girl is interested in each one of my brothers, and they're all different. So a couple girls, I'm like, okay, you know, this ain't gonna work. He gonna figure it out. I'm gonna let it go. But then the ones that you know is not gonna work and they stick around, it's like, ooh. And so it's very difficult when you have a brother or any man in your life that you care about, and they're seeing someone that you know is a conditional relationship, meaning as long as they're doing this, and that, then it's good. But relationships and love in general is not conditional. So a couple of my brothers have gotten so upset with me, like, you don't even know her. Why are you making comments? You don't even know her. And then when it hits the fan, it's like, yeah, you were right. I'm not looking for the you were right. I'm just being protective of you.
Please learn your lesson.
Yeah, learn it. Stick with it.
Yeah.
Don't go back. Don't try to be like, oh, you know, that was last time. No, last time is the only time for me. And I've had to tell myself that. Stop saying, oh, this is the last time. No, it's it. I'm good.
Yeah, and that's what it was. See, for years for me, it was all about trying to figure out what I did in the relationship incorrectly so that I could not do that again in the future. That's what I would focus on so much. And then what was really hard, the transition that was so hard for me to make in the recent times, in the recent relationships for the last year and a half, 2 years, is that I realized that, oh, there wasn't much I could change because I did everything right, if you will. And I say that with air quotes because, well, I did everything right and I was, air quotes, perfect in the relationship. Why'd they leave? Oh, it's because I didn't set this boundary for myself. We weren't, I was just lonely and I didn't want them to leave, this and that, whatever. So while I treated the person every which way I should have asserted my own needs. I should have communicated my own needs, this, that, and the other thing. And so now instead of looking for ways that I could be a better partner, I'm looking for ways to properly filter my partners to make sure I'm not just taking any Tom, Dick, or Harry into my life. So, you know.
We've talked about that, you know, just like, because we have a problem, like, when we're upset, be wary, like, stand back. But we are assertive people now because that's something we have worked on.
Yeah, it's burned us.
Yeah, it's burned us, but it's burned us with people we love. And that's why I tell people, you know, in business and work, you know, I'll get you together real quick. But when I come home, I don't put that on because I love these people. I care for these people.
Right.
These are my lifers. And so, but when the lifers start taking advantage of you,
that shit hurt.
You know,
it different.
Does. And you gotta tell yourself, like, you know what? Stand up for yourself. Whoever don't like it, they will find whichever exit that suits them.
Right.
And let it be.
Yeah. Everybody has their own process.
It really is. But once you get over the sting, you'll get, I mean, not so much you get used to being disappointed. You get acclimated with letting things go that don't serve you anymore. And it's hard.
It's very hard, especially, like I said earlier, you start learning who your longest friends are versus your actual friends and best friends.
Which is, oof.
That shit gets rough. That shit can get rough.
It is.
If you're lucky, it's something that just kind of fades and you separate and you're no longer, you know, you're like, oh, hey, how are you? Oh, it's nice to see you. Let's catch up. As opposed to some big blow up event.
Right. It shouldn't be like this mounting.
Yeah. It's nice if you kind of just grow apart.
Yeah.
Because then it's kind of this mutually accepted thing.
Right.
But if something, like if it's just like, well, we've been friends for like 20 years, how can you, like, those are hard.
Oh, yeah.
Those are very, very hard.
I've experienced that. And honestly, it wasn't always the other person. I have one situation where it was the other person and one situation where it was me. And I had to go to the person, and I did do it this year, and apologize to them and say, it wasn't you. I just didn't have it in me to be your friend.
Yeah. And you know what? That's so much more important to say than it's not you, it's me. Because sometimes that is the case. That is true. But you please cite what it is about yourself.
I said boom, boom,
because if you
boom.
go in and saying it's not you, it's me, that just makes the person feel worse. It just makes them feel, whether it's a relationship or a friendship or even a family member, you can't just go, it's not you, it's me. That shit makes them feel worse because that takes away their ability for closure and control, because
Right.
you're taking control away from them because there's
Yeah.
nothing they can do about it, and they feel so much fucking worse.
And
So I like how
I
you
don't
said
wanna do
that. That was very nice. And
I
guess what?
just felt so bad.
People have to take accountability.
Yes.
They have to take ownership.
Yes.
And have to play. They have to. And here's the thing: you may not even have done something wrong. However, you need to take ownership for the part that you played in it,
Right.
because guess what? There was probably an indication that this was coming, and you
Definitely
missed that
was.
shit. So take accountability for the part that you played in this, and try to figure out what you could have done differently, what you missed along the way that you ignored when you shouldn't have, so that
Yeah.
you don't do that again next time.
Because the fault that I had was is that I didn't agree with the person's choices in life.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I'm not. They probably don't agree with mine. And so while it was a setback, as far as I've known you for 20 plus years, and all of a sudden you're showing me something different, he has the right, and she has the right to change who they are. And they have the right to evolve, whether I agree or I disagree. And that's something I have to tell myself, Erinn. Even though you think this is some real just effed up stuff, that is their right to evolve. And so, but my problem was, and I told the person this, is that I knew that they struggled with rejection and abandonment. And I just, no questions asked. When they would text me, I would not text back. Just done with it. And so when I talked to the person, I asked them to come to lunch, and they were just like, I legit was just trying to trace back. They said in their mind mentally, they had, like the red strings where they were just trying to go over, what did I do wrong? And I knew the person so well that I knew they were doing that. And I felt empowered that I was making that person do that. Like, yeah, I want you to know I'm not there. And that was so wrong. And so I had to really just humble myself and say, it's you. You messed up.
Yeah, I found myself, saying some stuff like that to me, like that situation you mentioned earlier, where the person like took this tone with me that I didn't like, and so on. I find myself like, when bad things would happen to that person, I'm like, yeah, that's right, bitch.
Oh yeah, I used to be like,
yeah,
right.
exactly. I'm like,
I want you to feel that.
I really shouldn't be saying that to myself. I really shouldn't be feeling satisfaction this person's not doing so hot.
I know.
And thankfully, it's now gone away, and the anxiety of going and dealing with this person is no longer there, and everything's good now.
I'm working on that because I ain't there yet.
Well, and that's why it's good to be humble with shit, because no one's perfect. We all fuck up, and that's why, like, I think that's why we like tragic stories. Yeah. Because you're like, damn, I don't really have any fucking problems. Like, because what got me back to wanting to podcast again, what it got me to do the episode I recorded yesterday, was I watched that movie, The Pianist, which is about a Jewish person who survived the Holocaust. It's just a fucking rough story. And you see pure evil, but you see pure compassion in that particular movie, and it moves you, it inspires you, and that's why I wanted to talk about stuff, because I'm sitting here thinking, I'm a bodybuilder. I literally eat to excess for fun. Right. And put my body into really risky situations and force stress on it, and eat this food to fuel that stress for fun. When I just watch this man scrounge for scraps in these demolished buildings and ruins of a city in the middle of Warsaw, Poland, and Nazi-occupied Poland in the 40s, and he's scrounging for food, hoping that he doesn't starve to death or run into, a German soldier who's just going to blow his brains out for just existing. Like, I'm sitting there going, yeah, my life's not so bad. And then you think, and I took it to the other end of the spectrum about how many people that are in a situation like me where, they don't got to really worry about much, because they don't have many Now, I do have responsibilities, but I've built myself to a point where I could just chill and I'd be fine. But again, you're going to start going to those levels of anxiety and depression, because that's where boredom can take you. Yeah. But if you have enough adversity that you place upon yourself to keep you in a routine, all of a sudden this boredom can turn into inspiration and creativity. I was listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson the other day when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast again, and Joe asked him, so what's your creative process? And he goes, I get bored. I do nothing. And then all of a sudden, I started thinking about stuff. And then all of a sudden, I get an idea. And I look into that idea, and it becomes this thing, this new creative thing that I came up with. He goes, throughout history, who were the great scientists and philosophers Aristotle and Plato and Isaac Newton and all these great people. What did they do? They were aristocrats who had all the money in the world and nothing to do with it, so they were bored. What did they do? They created calculus. They created modern day philosophy. They did this, that, and the other. Boredom and nothing to do inspires creativity. And I'm like, damn, Neil, hit me with some big facts. That's some big head thinking or big brain thinking.
But it's also about what are you gonna do with it?
Exactly. But again, it's a balance. You can't just be bored all the time. No. Then you're just a sack of shit.
That's what it really kills me because I have like friends, family, and they're like, I'm bored. I'm like, okay, well you come over or you can come watch a movie, chill with me or whatever. They're like, no, I want to go out. I'm like, oh, when does boredom become spend money?
Right. Exactly. Or
when does boredom become like everything? If you're bored, that doesn't mean I gotta spend something. It just means find like I'm like, okay, why don't you read? Do you want to go on a walk with me?
Right.
Do you want to? It's like, no, let's go to the mall or let's go to the movie. And I'm like,
I've never understood that either. I never understood like I need to spend money because I'm bored. What?
Right.
What?
Like,
especially with Amazon being on your phone, like you're just like, I'm bored. Add to shopping cart. Add to shopping cart. Add to shopping cart. It's like no wonder y'all have trouble with money. Fuck.
When I tell you, I do my dad's budget, and so I give him like $300 a week, which for me is too much.
Yeah. Goddamn, that's a month for me.
That's too much. $300 spending money is too much. In a week is too much, and so he gets paid every week on Wednesday, like clockwork, every week. And so I gave him left $300 in his bank account. And I really only went to leave $150 and that wasn't enough. But
it was gone within an hour, I'm sure.
It was, and he said $300 until next week. And no, it wasn't even next week, it was 5 days. So it wasn't even 7 days. He said, I can't make that work for 5 days. You can't make $300 work after all your bills are paid because you're bored. Like I have nothing else.
Learn to fucking knit or something. Shit.
Man, like go exercise. You're out of shape. Go exercise. Like
do something.
Walk
go for
around.
A walk. Play chess with yourself.
Go pick up your granddaughter. Do something. Anything. Like just.
I think it's just how people just get so stuck in their ways.
It really is. It's.
Introspection's not just about being better character or anything. Like sometimes introspection just look at your daily routine and being like, that's kind of fucked up. I shouldn't do that to myself anymore because it always bites me in the ass. I really should change that. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? Yeah, I should change that.
Because really the problem is a lot of people don't want to be bored, but it's really not boredom. It's you don't want to sit with your own thoughts. And so when you really know you're in a healthy state, in every sense of the way is when you can sit with yourself and whatever comes to your mind, your spirit, you are good with it. Even if it bothers you can sit with it.
Exactly. And that's why, so my previous episode, The Dark Passenger, where I talk about how we all have this dark passenger, depression, anxiety, whatever it is, trauma, whatever it is, this thing that you are so terrified to sit in a room with. It's gonna come, no matter who you are. It hits you at some point,
especially with this pandemic and everybody's quarantined.
Exactly, and I said I really like this analogy or metaphor of a dark passenger that we all have because if you watch the show Dexter, he would refer to his urge to kill as his dark passenger, right? Well, he found a way to live with his dark passenger. His stepfather, Harry, gave him the tools and the system to live in our society. And basically, this person checks all these boxes. They're a real piece of garbage. I can go ahead and get my dark passenger. We can hold hands and frolic in the streets as we kill this motherfucker. And so that is what Dexter and this fictional character did. Well, for me, my dark passenger had a lot to do with self-deprecation and loneliness. Times where I would just wake up in the morning, look at the dirt on my shoes and go, hey, that's worth more than I am. And then I have to sit with my own dark passenger and figure out how I can be okay with this entity that is a piece of me. Because if I'm not okay with that entity, well, I'm not okay with myself, and that's going to come out somewhere else in my life. And so
it will always come out.
Always. In your relationships and your vice control or lack thereof, and it'll come out. So you got to sit there and figure out what your process is. So that episode that I released, I documented what I did. because it had been a couple of years since I had one of those I guess episodes, if you will, or those outbursts. And so I had it, and I documented what I did. I said, well, I listened to some music first after I recognized what was going on, and the music I listened to was something that was extremely relatable based on what the artists were saying, and I would listen to that, and it would throw me into a crying fit, the big cry, that big purge, and when I was done, I felt more numb and melancholy, but I felt like I had gotten the energy out, and I felt drained, but it was like an earned exhaustion. It was almost like I worked out, and I felt better. I was like, all right, now I need to start working on this stuff. So I sat there. I was like, where is this coming from? Oh, that's what it is. Oh, this, that. And I documented everything, and I talked about it. And when I talked about it more and more, for me, it made me feel better. And all of a sudden, the more I spoke it into existence, the more I accepted that piece of myself because it was normalized. Yes. The more you normalize this thing, the more accepting you are of yourself. And all of a sudden, you have the tools to not just deal with it. Because I tell people all the time, they are never something to deal with. Just like you are never something to deal with yourself. You address what needs to be addressed. Right. And all of a sudden, you can start processing this all and finding where everything needs to go. And all of a sudden, hey, everything's okay.
I think the problem that I just recently learned is even with self and others, we're oftentimes attacking ourselves, we're attacking the other person.
It's always all or nothing.
What is the act? We are combating this problem.
Either blaming yourself or someone else.
And so
like 100% of the other.
And so eventually you have to tell yourself, because we all, I know for me, especially we have similar type of personalities where it's just we are not doing good enough, gotta do more. And so now we're at the point where we're telling ourselves, you did a lot.
Yeah, did too much.
It's okay to be tired.
To fucking relax.
Relax and just take a break, and because I usually have to tell myself, Erinn, stop. Go to bed. Erinn, don't work anymore. Erinn. Like to the point where when we're working out, I have to sometimes I can't help it with work. I know I have to take my phone with me. But most of the time, I will leave my phone in the car because I'm like, this is my time. Exactly. If I don't take this time, my mind is going to race all day, every day. I have 194 unanswered text messages. Not because I'm ignoring people. Like, I will get it down and it'll jump up. So I tell people all the time, you have to take care of yourself because that's something I'm learning. I don't take care of myself. I've always taken care of other people.
Yeah, and you know what? Just like anything else, that's become a goddamn meme. Treat yourself. Get you that cake.
Take care of yourself. Don't treat yourself. Take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself. Self-love. Well, is that self-love? Sure. Yeah. You sure that Gucci belt self-love? Yeah. You sure that...
Because I'm not going to lie. I really, 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 really want a Louis Vuitton Never. I really do want the Never Full Tote. And it's $3,200 on one.
Fucking God.
I know. And I can afford it. And I want to buy it so bad.
And as a side note, you can afford it, yes. But for those who don't know, the typical calculation on whether or not you can afford something, can you buy 5 of it? Yes? Okay, yeah, you can afford that. You can afford that now.
I'll be pissed
That
off.
is what, if you didn't know, that is the metric you use to know if you can afford something.
And my grandpa used to always tell me, Erinn, it ain't on sale just because it's on sale. He would always say that. He was like, just because it's on sale don't mean it's on sale. I'm like, that's true. But I know.
Oh, I got to capitalize on this opportunity. Oh, my God. And then I go, well, you could just wait till it's out of season. Right. And it's last year's model or 5 years ago's model. Because you like it now, you'll like it in 5 years, right? Well, then it's not in style. It's not trendy. I'm like, you think it's trendy to be taken advantage of? Right. Really?
I think for me, it's not even about the brand. Really what it is I know I like nice things. But anything nice that I've ever had, I have never bought it for myself. Someone's always bought it for me. And so I'm trying to just wait out to see if my dad or my grandpa's coming.
Yeah, I'm definitely very happy that I don't really have an attachment to material items. The only thing I really have an attachment to in this whole house is that recliner because it belonged to my grandfather. If this place ever catches on fire, I'm spreading out the house with that in my arms. Just above my head, spreading out the house. Funny as fuck image. But it's the only thing in this whole house I give a damn about. Just spray out the door with the whole ass recliner in my hand. The only thing in this whole house that I care about. Everything else, let it burn. Whatever.
I have nothing in my house Okay, I'm not gonna lie.
Immediate backtrack.
Anyone that knows me, I love sneakers.
Yeah, you're a sneakerhead.
I love sneakers.
But you are the smartest fucking sneakerhead I have ever seen.
I don't buy them.
Yeah.
Like, I wait.
And you take care of them.
I take care. And people are like, oh my gosh, they look brand new. I'm like, yeah, because when I tell you, you think I'm in my laundry room doing clothes? Nope, I'm there. And so I've waited, like, I'm a Yeezy and Jordan person. And I like Nikes, but as far as expensive things, like, I'm not really big on Balenciaga sneakers, Chanel sneakers.
Well, like those ones you're wearing right now. How old are those? Like, when did that model come out?
The model came out maybe in 2019.
Really? Those are that new?
No. These are, well, I got them in when did I get them? I got them in, I can tell you right now. I got them in March as a birthday present. And the other ones I got that I have are from my grandfather for a graduation present. However, when did these come out? They're Yeezy Zebras. The other ones I have are Yeezy Clays. I always buy them on this app, Goat. If you want to give me an endorsement, let me know. Because I love them. I will definitely.
The podcast blows up. I guarantee you get one.
Please. I get the whole Yeezy 350 collection, some of the Wave Runners. Please. Oh, God. Where are they?
Well, the reason I ask is because, like, those ones, that's probably my favorite pair of Yeezys from I've seen.
Oh,
now, I own 0 Yeezys. I have 0 interest in getting one.
But you can afford
I would
the whole
see,
collection.
yes, I could. However, those I think are the coolest ones I've seen.
I love them.
Out of all the ones I've seen, those are the coolest ones. Because I gotta say, some of them look like fucking idiot shoes.
Some of them
look like goddamn moon boots. And I think it's dumb as shit.
I can't get down with some of them.
But like, what's that one, the Marty McFly one that's like $17,000 for a pair?
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Like,
I'm not doing that.
It looked dumb as shit.
You can't.
If that was stylish in Back to the Future,
I'm not doing that.
a movie that's 30 plus years old, you think that looks good now? I don't think so.
It came out.
It's like how the mullet's making a comeback. I'm like, fuck you, it is. You can keep that shit.
Oh my God, it's horrible.
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
They came out February 25th, 2017.
Okay, that sounds right.
I did not buy them until
you said you got them March of last year, right?
March of this year. I'm sorry.
March of this year. So 4 years later.
Right. So
4 years and a month later.
Even like anything I buy is always like sneaker wise. As far as anything you see me that's like a Nike for the most part is a retro. So I keep them up because if I needed to resell them, I could. And for me, it would be a profit because I didn't buy them.
Well, and here's the thing. How much did those cost at the time that they were a gift. You didn't even buy them. But how much were they? Like $60? 160?
$600.
Oh my fucking God.
The other ones were $8. Okay, all in all, my collection of sneakers probably is worth 10 grand.
Oh dear.
And there's some that people don't know I
Shows how much I know about this shit. But
there's some that people don't
But when
even
they came out, how much were they? A few grand?
$250. They were $250.
Really? So they're worth more now?
Yeah. Because people will buy them and hold them, and then they know that they bought them out. So now the demand has gone up because the supply is limited. And so, yeah.
Oh, wow.
But when I said I didn't spend that money, when I tell you that I will ask for them.
That's the key takeaway here. You didn't spend that money.
Christmas,
you waited.
birthday.
You waited.
And because I have an uncle who doesn't have children in Florida, I have my father and mother, they're not married. My grandfather, my grandma, she ain't know about nothing, which is my mom's mother. My grandfather's my father's father. But I have different people who know Erinn likes sneakers. Okay, Erinn, what kind of sneakers you want? And it's not always easy. Like Jordans are cheaper, so sometimes they'll say like, okay, I want a Bred 11s. Those are like $240. Okay, Erinn, here you go. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
You know, when I graduated from grad school, everybody was like, what do you want? Sneakers, sneakers. And I got it because I earned it. Like, and they always tell me, we'll get you what you want because you're doing something. And on top of that, I've never asked for anything unless it's Christmas or birthday.
Exactly. And it's not like you're going out of your way to ask. They came to you. And that's a big takeaway also. So 2 things there. One, it was, hey, I want to do something for you. What can I do? And you're like, oh, well, this would be nice.
Right.
And that's when you got them.
Sneakers is my love language.
Right. And so that's that first part. The second part is you waited. You waited and you waited. And that's what I think. So obviously most often if you do that, so let's use a car as a great example.
Yep.
A car, if it's been used it loses over half its value immediately almost.
Jesus Christ,
Okay?
yeah.
And so if you like a certain body style of a car, like, ooh, I want that. Okay, wait 2 years. All of a sudden, you're paying half price.
Oh my God, right?
Uh-huh. And guess what? If it was driven by a previous owner, now it's a third of the price of it was new. And so this is why I'll never buy a new car. I will never buy a new car. Unless I have some stupid, ungodly amount of money. I will never buy a new car. And actually, even then, I probably won't. Here's why. If it's used, it's already got that nick on it.
Yeah.
It's already got that scrape or that one
Right.
flaw, and you're fine with it. You get something brand fucking new, that first spec, you're sitting there going, fuck! You know what I mean? It's the same thing with your sneakers. That first spec, you're like, oh, God damn it! You know?
You gotta get Never Wet from Lowe's. It's concrete, but you spray it in like anything, you just wipe it up, which is why, these look like they do. But, even with me, I bought a new car, but my father works at Ford, so I didn't really buy a new car.
Yes.
The car I had, the miles were getting hot. I took it.
Yep.
They gave me the money for it.
Yep.
I took that car. They said, okay, after all your rebates, your dad's, A-plan, and your trade-in, you owe us $9,000 for a new car. Take it.
Yep.
Yes, I'll take that.
Same thing with my car. I bought my car cash. Here's the thing. Came in on trade-in that day. I got into a very, very small, insignificant car accident, going maybe 3 miles an hour, but it wasn't my fault. I was going to the straightaway. Somebody pulled out when they shouldn't have. They hit my rear passenger side, knocked the rear axle off. Totaled the car. I ended up getting a hell of a lot more money than what I paid for the car for whatever fucking reason.
We don't complain.
Don't complain at all. Ended up getting $8,400 for it. I paid $55. Got $8,400 for it. And then the car I'm driving now came in on trade at the work where my dad works.
Yep.
Again, these connections of family and so on. We help each other out. Comes in to ticket price $9,600. One previous owner, just a little bit less than 100,000 miles, 2007 Lexus. I'm like, okay. Put that $8,400 toward that. All of a sudden, now I'm just paying $1,200 for this 2007 Lexus with zero accident history and one previous owner.
Yep.
And it's in immaculate condition. Fuck yes, take that. Now, that's an example of what I like to call luck, which is the mixture of opportunity and work ethic aligning with each other. But here's the thing, too. With that, all right, that was something I needed. Your shoes, that's not something you need. However, if in that situation where someone goes, hey, what you want for your birthday? If there was something you needed, you would have asked for that.
But I
Priorities. Exactly. Yeah. And so, like, for instance, this year, when my mom was like, well, what do you want for your birthday? And I gave her 3 items. I said, I would like some glassware instead of these plastic Tupperware because I'm trying to get plastic out of my life because there's emerging research saying that shit ain't good for you. And 2, I definitely need a new vacuum. And, if you're looking for something else too, I'd love it if you go in on halvesies for paying for my protein powder for the year, which is usually about $800 or so. And so if you want to go in on halvesies with that, that'd be great. If not, all right, I'll handle it. But again, you're giving this person, my mother, who adores, her love language is gifting and servicing. That's how she shows her love for me, and I understand that. I'm not going to take advantage of it, but I'm going to give her a little bit of something every now and then because I know that's what she wants. Otherwise, she'll find something to go spend that money on, and it may not be something I want or even need. And so I try to direct her towards something that actually will bring me joy and happiness. And that way, it's a win-win.
Yes.
But again, I choose what I need over what I want, which is already hard for me anyway because I don't really want things very often. I don't really delve into material possessions that much. And the day that I do is going to be something kind of like this. I have this thought in my head because I like having, there are certain treats that I enjoy, like for instance, certain energy drinks that you can't buy in bulk. You can go to Sam's Club and Costco and get like the big things of Monsters and so on, and I like the 0-calorie ones. But I also really like Rain energy drinks, and I like some of these other ones like Rockstar, but you can't buy them in bulk. Okay, they taste better, and the ingredients are just a little bit better than the Monster ones. But I don't drink enough of them. I don't need that many, but I would like. In my ideal, I have more money than I know what to do with situation. I got shelves of that shit in a storage room, and it just looks real nice. I'm like, yeah, that looks cool. It's organized, even color organized, alphabetically organized, whatever. It's like having a real nice movie collection, a real nice comic book collection. It's kind of like that. Or like how I'd love to have what I call a war room, where it's a little room where I get all these little miniatures that I can put together and paint. Because when I was a kid, I loved taking all the like my micro machines, my little action figures, Mobile Suit Gundams, and all these other little like war machines, and I'd put up in a little battle situation. I'd spend hours setting it up, and I'd just leave it for weeks, taking up half the family room, pissing my mom the fuck off the whole time. And that's something I'd like to do in the future. But here's the problem: that shit, as an adult, not that expensive. But the adult versions of that shit, real fucking expensive. I ain't gonna be spending that money anytime soon. One day, that'd be kind of nice. It's gonna be painful for me to pull that trigger with how frugal I am, but I'm gonna do it at some point. But here's what people don't understand, and this is why I love the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. They had really good lessons in that show. One of them, it was very funny to watch Carlton and Uncle Phil have this conversation where they were talking about the cost of something, and then Uncle Phil goes, well, I guess I don't really got to worry about money. Because, Carlton, you invested my money so that my money's making me money. And I don't even have to have a job anymore, and I can pay all my bills, be happier than can be. Oh, hey, ha, ha, and they start laughing. Because that's the fact of the matter. If you're patient enough to build your assets, to build your wealth, it can work for you. And all of a sudden, you don't have to work anymore. You probably will, but you'll work in a field that you enjoy rather than because you have to. And you'll have that security, and that shit matters.
It does. You have to build something where eventually you're like, it's passive. It's just, it comes in regularly scheduled. You're good. Assets. That's what you need. And so for me, I always tell people, don't go buy something if you don't have an asset. Makes no sense.
It just appreciates in value. It has no value. You're giving them cash that has this value, and what do you get in return?
Right, something.
Nothing. Most often, nothing.
Anything with straight line depreciation, I'm not giving you my cash. I'm not. Anything that depreciate, I'm not gonna. Now, there's certain things, of course, I have to, but my cash flow is for assets only. Now, if I, somebody's like, Erinn, what do you want? Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
But my cash flow is going to things that's going to make me money. That's it. If you can't bring me something back, you gotta go. Sorry.
Yep.
That's just where I'm at.
Me too. And that's the thing. You don't have to do that, but I'll tell you what, you'll live a lot better life because you can work. You can work on an average level your whole life and never stop working, and then retire at 65, maybe.
Yeah.
Or you work really fucking hard for 5, 10, or 15 years. And you don't have to. You don't have to. Who wants to spend half their life working when you can spend the majority of your life having fun?
I've been working since I was 16, so when I tell people I'm going to be retired by the time I'm 35, they're like, what? But you got to consider, I would have been working for 19 years by that time. So it's like, I'm going to be passively retired. I'm still going to work, but I'm only going to be there maybe a couple hours a day.
Exactly.
Checking in, managing. Yeah. Because I've already worked.
Because, like we said earlier, you don't want to be bored. You want to here and there, but here's the thing: you want to choose to be bored. Yeah. See, the boredom most people incur on themselves is boredom that was not planned. Something happened where they're like, I don't have anything to do. Whereas when I'm bored, it's usually a welcome thing. It's like, I like this. Now I got the freedom to do whatever the fuck I want.
Right.
And at first you're like, well, what do I do? And that's when the nihilism starts to come in. You're like, well, what's the point? But then you're like, okay, there's a point. I just gotta find it. You gotta make a point. That's it. Because, I mean, we're all stardust in the end. We're just worm food. Yeah, well, whatever. Easy there, Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah, you just gotta find your own purpose, your own meaning, and then just go for it.
That's where I'm at. Look, find something you like, capitalize on it, go from there.
Yeah. I think that's a good spot.
I think so too.
All right, hell yeah. Well, this has been the first podcast with a guest. And again, I'm going to call it, because fuck you, fight me, due to the unisex term. This is dude talk. We're going to talk. We're going to sit and we're going to talk. But thank you for coming. Hopefully we can keep doing this because it's a lot of fun. I mean, I don't know how long that was, but I'm going to guess that was probably an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Almost 2 hours. For a few minutes on 2 hours.
And it went like that, like nothing. So I love how that feels, and that's why this is fun. It's a good time to just sit and talk about fucking whatever.
And I will say this, and the only thing I'll say after that, I'm done. But you were the only person that made me feel like I wasn't crazy when I first came to you. Like we started being friends and stuff, and we had the same ideas on money. You were the first person who normalized like that.
Aside from your grandfather,
aside from my grandfather, and my mother, like the first person my age that didn't look at me like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah. And so, not saying like I'm trying to be like, "Oh, you gotta," but you normalize like, this is how you make money work for you. This is how you do it. And so I was like, okay, we're on the same page. We're good. Nobody's going to look at me like I'm just a hoarder of money.
Yeah, yeah. And again, there's a difference between being cheap and being frugal.
And we're frugal.
You know, we spend money on the people that we love because we like making them feel good. Right, like your niece.
She gets all my money.
Exactly.
But it's more
we all have that person.
But honestly, I don't buy her gifts, and to be honest, I usually don't contribute. They just give me the money and I put it on me.
Again, it's something presented to you. It's presented to you.
But what by my money? I mean, Chick-fil-A. She gets all my Chick-fil-A.
There you go. There you go. And well, you take her to the zoo or Kings Island or wherever the fuck.
Experiences, and she's a child.
Exactly.
So, exactly. And I'll write it off.
Right. Honestly. Well, cool. All right. Well, that's the first one. And for anybody listening, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and see you guys next time. I always do that at the end.
Times behind, get all the bad things off your mind. He's feeling good, she's feeling good, we're feeling good, yeah. Just hanging out, just having fun, we're number one. Just hanging out, just having fun. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey. There's nothing better than your friends, there's no problem you can't win. Someone that's always got your back, not caring about this or that. Just hanging out, just having fun, we're number one. Just hanging out, just having fun. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey. All about meeting new faces, the smiles on your face and you can't erase it. Partying on, it's going on, partying on to the break of dawn. Oh, it's time to put hard times behind, get all the bad things off your mind. Just hanging out, just having fun, we're number one. Just hanging out, just having fun. Just hanging out, just having fun, we're number one. Whoa, I'm a dude. He's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey, I'm a dude.